Buckle up, you bastards. You're about to listen to another episode of Very Late with Blackbrainz and Sadgodzuki. Get ready for uninformed opinions about video games, hood politics, and rambling tangents.
And we back, young Zuccavelli. How are you doing, man?
I'm doing good, bro. What you doing? How you doing?
That's a loaded question. You know, I'm always doing quite badly. Quite poor, actually. I've been, I've been doing this. I've been playing a lot of Ninja Gaiden 2 Black.
Yeah.
There's no reason for that game to be 80 gigs. It was 6 gigs when I got it on the 360, man.
No, it's 6 gigs in the Ninja Gaiden collection, but now it's 90. I'm like, man.
It's just they put all those textures over Ninja Gaiden 2 and went, yep, 80 gigs, please.
It was for Rachel, wasn't it?
It was all Rachel, yeah. There's a lot of bumps to map with some of those girls. you know, the folks at Koei Tecmo were like, my God, the textures we're gonna need.
You think they had Itagaki on speed dial?
Yeah, you think Itagaki's just in like a Roach Motel smoking a cigarette in complete darkness, and the phone rings and he picks it up and goes, hello. It's time.
You think Itagaki and Harada got like a special, like that one phone just in case Harada calls Itagaki?
Yo, I read this interview. I read this interview that Harada has like lost complete contact with Itagaki.
And it makes him sad.
Yeah. It's like, it feels like that moment in that Ghost Recon game where Sam Fisher's contemplating the death of Snake. It's just me.
Oh man, that was a good mission line on that game. No, because I was thinking about how like it was whole like the cool bar and Yusuke from Yu Yu Hakusho type relationship because he looked. It's like it's just like watching Yusuke die. The cool bar's like, go back here, Messi. You're supposed to fight me. Go back. He's
rivals turned idols, man. It's my best fiend. But yeah, man, Ninja Gaiden 2 still makes me very angry to this day. It's a great feeling. Very happy about that.
Yeah.
But, speaking of games, wow, what a segue. That's how we do it here on Very Late. We have an expert on video games and video game related content. We have a lovely guest with us, the wonderful Caddicarus. Caddy, how are you doing?
How you doing?
Oh, he's completely silent.
I lost the mic. I lost the mute button. Yeah, your resident expert has just joined.
It's like, oh god, this is our expert, the guy who can't work mute.
Oh. Can we say fuck? Can we swear in
Oh yeah. We say the N-word a billion times. You can't say it. All right.
No, don't worry about that. No.
Yeah.
I know you have that Willy Wonka golden ticket
We
thing.
certainly do. It's framed. It's framed above my desk.
So y'all will not be hearing Caddicarus say neighbor.
No.
You won't
be saying Nigel. Nothing of the sort. But Zuki and I will.
I won't. No. No, I will say no. I will say that N word. No, no.
What a class act.
That's a good one. Yeah. That's what English is. English is class, as we know from our lovely port history and our shipping industry. And do we want to go into that? I don't know. Maybe not.
I mean,
maybe not. But I looked at ECD on the map and it shows a picture of Jamaica.
Yeah, as a Jamaican Canadian, I'm well acquainted with the British.
I'm sure. I'm really
on both sides.
Well, I mean, I was gonna say, Canada. You love the Royals just as much as we do.
Oh, big fans. Big fans of them. Yeah.
I'm the only anti-royal here.
Do you call him King Philip, or is he still Prince Philip, or is he just Philip?
I don't call that guy shit, man.
Yeah, no, neither do we. He's just Philip. He's always Philip.
That's like I just ignore that when the news gets a little more British.
Excuse the French fries and burgers, but who's Philip?
We're not talking about the monarchy in this episode.
We could. I mean, I mean, it's kind of, it's required when you get an English person.
That's true. All right. Do you want to give my southern friend the primer, Caddy? Do you want to fill him in about Big Phil?
I'll give you the primer, right? Okay. So there was a queen, and she kicked the bucket. And but just before she did, her husband did, and her husband was using some sort of black magic in order to keep himself alive. No one really knows how that zombified skeleton of a man kept living.
Black magic. What did you mean?
Yeah.
The dark arts. Not that dark. Not that dark.
Oh my god.
This is gonna be good. This is the Caddicarus cancellation coalition.
It really do be that. I can't even slag off the royal family without being baited into something.
I can't believe Caddicarus is racist. This is tragic. Who's next?
Can't believe it.
Who's next of the classic game icons?
I know. There's not many of us left, There's not many of us left. Oh, Jesus Christ. But yeah, basically Philip died. No, Philip was the guy. He's Prince Charles. Charles is the new guy. That's how much I care about the royals. He's not King Philip. It's King Charles. So that's how much I give a shit. I don't even know who's running shit. There you go. That's how much I care. So that's the rundown. I said at the beginning of this interview, do you guys in Canada still call him Philip or Prince Philip or King Philip, and it's not even fucking Philip. Yeah, so there you go. Look, man, that's how much you need to know.
We don't even have anyone running our country right now. We just the guy who's in the middle of resigning is just kind of walking around his office until someone replaces him.
I was gonna say, isn't what's his face? That Justin guy, isn't he got a bit of history with cancellations?
Yeah, he's very passionate about makeup, very passionate about theatrics.
See,
very theatric guy.
I've never John B. the Genie.
I see. I've never seen the pictures. I just know that that's something that he did. So
I'll send you the picture.
Next question, yeah. Oh,
don't worry about
it. Have it, on. I bet
it's on my desk. It's my wallpaper. Don't you? It's my wallpaper right now. I'm looking.
It's the only fact I know about that guy.
Yeah.
Oh, that's amazing. That's amazing.
Oh yeah.
I'm gonna Google it now.
Oh, you should. Just look up Justin Trudeau blackface. Well, we'll start on a good note here. We'll work back to everything else.
Oh no, but didn't he have a turban on in that picture too?
He did, yeah.
Oh yeah.
Oh, so it's like Indian then, I guess.
Yeah, which is
what was he doing?
It's I don't know. It's a lot of stuff going on there, and I mean, given Canada's relationship with with the Indian population. It's quite bizarre that he is our ambassador, but you know.
I gotta say something. I haven't looked at the picture yet, but I've just gone on Google. I've just typed in Justin Trudeau BLA, BLA, and blackface comes up in the first 2 results, but then it also goes to Black Ops 6 and then blames India.
That all checks out. Man, I didn't know Justin Trudeau was a skin in Blob 6. Let's go.
That's unbelievable.
A lot of happy Canadians.
Well, in which costume though? In which costume?
Oh, I hope both skins are available. Prime Minister and Genie.
So you get the regular skin for free.
I can see. Oh, I'm looking at the picture.
It's quite bad, isn't it?
Oh,
yeah, it is.
That's one of those kinds of like. That's not even like kind of like a lightly dabbed on. That's like that must have taken a long time, and at no point did anybody while they were doing it think, "Is this a good idea?"
Well, he was the previous prime minister's son, so a lot of yes men in his clique, I'm sure.
Oh, he's a nepo.
He is a nepo baby.
Nepo.
Yeah, he's that N-word, nepo. Yeah.
All right, this episode is going quite well.
Isn't it just?
Yes.
So we'll walk it back to you being a content creator, allegedly.
Maybe.
Yeah, let's throw some allegedlys around. Yeah, that'll do.
Yeah, we'll establish the allegedlys. It's like, well, that'll be the name of the episode is Caddicarus allegedly.
Yeah.
Allegedly creates content and says N-word.
Yeah, but which one?
Yeah, there are a lot of words under N.
Yeah.
So
tune in, everybody, and stay tuned till the very end and find out. Sit through all the mid-roll ads. You might find out.
We don't get ads. God, I wish, man.
Turn off that pesky ad block.
I wish. I'd be a happy man if I got mid-roll ads.
Oh God,
I do this for the love of the game.
Yeah. I don't do it for love. I do it.
Just do it.
So
just doing it.
When it comes to like when you started making content, what like really drove you to want to make videos, specifically videos about video games and peripherals?
Geez, do you know what? So making stuff about video games wasn't even the intent to begin with. It was more just I knew what I didn't want to do and was like, can I make something work that doesn't involve doing what sounds really horrible to me?
Mm-hmm.
Like, and it was basically that mixed with, sheer stubbornness, sheer boundless energy, sheer time on my hands, tricking my parents into telling them that like this will work. Don't you see these people? They make millions of dollars a year doing this. I could be doing that, and kind of stringing them along for a bit. And undiagnosed ADHD. That all of that was put into a blender, and then I ended up on YouTube and doing okay at it. But yeah, video games specifically though, it was just what I knew I could write about, and that was essentially all it was to it. Because I was actually going into media in general before YouTube ever kicked off. I was working for I say working. I was kind of what's it like when you're
Were you like an intern? Yeah,
kind of. So like I was kind of there was a really good friend of mine where I used to live, who did and does a load of work with the BBC. I'm pretty sure he still works with them now, but Bob Clark his name was, and he absolute lovely guy, and greatest accent I've ever heard on a person. He was a Jamaican guy, and he was just the loveliest, sweetest, just greatest person, and he got my foot in the door in East London, working very, very briefly with a TV channel in the UK called Sky Sports. So just Sky as a
I'm aware
concept.
of Sky,
yeah. So Sky would be where Sky is where the UK gets HBO shows from.
I got you. Oh.
So yeah, I was kind of with him and his little team, and I was kind of helping out a load of mid-20s to mid-30-year-old East Londoners, how Vegas Pro worked. and I was this like 17-year-old little spotty teenage twat who was just like trying to teach these like rough East Londoners, and it didn't go well. I was not prepared for that kind of thing. But yeah, that was where I started. I was just trying to get into anything media, TV, film, I was not picky.
Right.
And then this just happened to come along. Normal boots were the big thing back in the day, and it was like, like everyone knows AVGN and everybody will cite AVGN as an inspiration, I suppose. But then it was like, yeah, okay, but how many times can you do this game makes me so mad shtick? And then you can only say this game bad, it's smelly, and make it funny. AVGN, that's in his name, angry video game nerd. And then when you have someone like irate gamer come in, it's like, it's the same idea, and yet it doesn't work.
That's watered down lemonade at that point. That's like,
yeah, it's like if you've got you've got your brand, you're wearing it on your sleeve, right? Like angry video game nerd. You can't get, if you've originated that whole idea and you've perpetuated it, you've popularized it, anyone that does an angry retro gaming nerd thing is just going to be derivative. Like, so that's when Normal Boots, like I was just watching AVGN for the sake of watching it, but then Normal Boots comes along and it's like, oh, hang on, so you can do like stoner humor with Peanut Butter Gamer, and then you can do whatever the fuck Jontron was doing, and then like it was like, oh, hang on, so I could probably make something work with my own spin on it, I suppose, is the way I was thinking. In hindsight, I wouldn't say that at all, but like at the time I was probably like, okay, how many people in 2011, 2012 were doing this kind of thing in a more Normal Bootsy style, but they also had an English accent and were born in 1994 and grew up with the PlayStation, which is more of a UK-centered thing anyway, really. Everybody that, everyone that was on YouTube, it was all about Nintendo, Super Nintendo, Nintendo 64, and it was like, nah, shit, I never grew up with any of that. I grew up in, I guess the ecstasy mid 90s rave scene in the UK, fucking Prodigy and all that shit. And the PlayStation was directly marketed to that crowd. So I mean, that's not where I was at 4 years old, but you get what I'm saying.
Yeah, you were going to some crazy parties as a child.
Oh, that's when I had the hardcore music, man.
Just listening to Cold Fusion in a warehouse as a toddler.
Yeah, Chemical Brothers, just fucking doing love, but yeah, so that's essentially one thing led to the other. I made a shot at it. Funnily enough, my first ever video, which was on Rascal Racers many years ago, now it's, oh god, this May it will be 13 fucking years ago. Oh my god, no. But that long ago, it was actually an audition video for Normal Boots because they were still looking for quote unquote talent. So I sent it in, didn't get it. I still have the email from Peanut Butter Gamer that said, we're not looking for new people right now. So yeah, it's really funny because like I'm now really close friends with him, so whenever I see him or talk to him, it's just like, I've still got that email. It's like, you crushed my dreams, man. It's weird how things turn around. But that's how I kind of began. It was just an abject desire, and I'm going to say undiagnosed ADHD. And people are going to get sick of me saying that phrase and using it as much as I'm going to be using it, but it actually does shape a surprising amount of how I've ended up where I am. And, it's the kind of like, so I won't be using it in a kind of, but ADHD kind of way, but in more of a, this is why this ended up happening in this way. Right. It was just like, even if I was making no money in my part-time job, or I was working, like I did all sorts of things. I was working in a supermarket for a period of time, and then I was working in like with my dad on a building site for a period of time, which is a very difficult image for a lot of people to stomach. I was one of the lights. So I was doing all of that stuff, and it was like, I need to make money. I'm not above any of this, but it was like, it was the Belle, Beauty and the Beast thing. It was like, I need something more.
You were kind of yearning for that, like I want this dream of mine to come true, right? Looking out the window.
It wasn't even. Yeah, I would say it was it's easy to say it's a dream. I would say it was more just like, a desire to do something creative, whether it be musical or film, TV. Just that was what I knew. That was what I was comfortable in. That's what I was interested in. I knew people were already making money doing it, and YouTube was really getting off as like a proper business venture for a lot of people. So all the stars kind of aligned in that sense, and it all ended up working out. Yeah,
I guess you would have been in that kind of pocket of time, where YouTube wasn't like super heavily monetized and like business oriented like it is presently. But it was a little after YouTube was just seen as kind of like, oh, just throw up a funny video on here, right? Like,
yeah. It was like, it was actually, I would say it was kind of the dawn of, you know, I remember like even with AVGN, it was like whenever he did a 10, 11, 12-minute video, it was like, oh, that's a big video, you know? Yeah. And then like after that became a bit, you know, antiquated, it then ended up just getting into ridiculous levels, and look where we are now. But yeah, like it was like knowing that you could get an entertaining video out, and it didn't have to be a one-off viral 10-second video of a cat. It could be something that you created. And yeah, like you said, when the monetization wasn't such a like motivating factor, more people were doing more videos more frequently that were way shorter, which has pluses, but it has pros and it has cons. I mean, I know you sent me the sheet of questions. I skimmed over it and was like, yeah, these are fine, but I don't actually know if I can't remember if you're going to ask questions specifically about, you know, making videos and length and stuff. But yeah, like I do think there are pros and cons to both ends of it. Like the way it is now, pros and cons. The way it was, pros and cons. And yeah, it was still kind of a new thing to do 10-minute plus videos about very niche subjects. And yeah, what was weird as well is that I haven't checked my stats for a while, but I remember at one point I was looking at my audience demographics, and at one point a few years back it was like 70% American, and that was surprising. And it was, I think what led to that, I suppose, was this maybe not many people were doing the PlayStation 1 shit. Nobody was really tackling that. Like AVGN did it once with Independence Day or something, and that's one of his least popular videos. So I was kind of reaching out to a new demographic, and then you've got the novelty of the British thing, and then yeah, it all just kind of what I was, you know, I'm not gonna say in a million years I was an originator. I'm not, but if you want to try and dissect the reason why things have happened the way they have, I would say those are things that were kind of new at the time. Maybe I really don't know though.
I know like a bunch of those guys back in the old school angry video game era, they were like older guys at the time. So when they grew up, they were playing like the NES. Like I played the NES, but it was like when I was like 15. My first console was the Super Nintendo. So I think it's just like I think it's a lot of Americans are like, I feel nostalgia about games from my childhood. We use that at that perfect time for the PlayStation 1 niche, because that's how I actually saw some of your videos about PlayStation 1, because we're like, I love Crash Bandicoot.
Well, there you go.
Yeah, the revival of Crash Bandicoot.
So it all happens for a reason, right? And it's like, and by that time, if you had when I guess so, you're talking about Insane, right? When that was coming out. So at that point, I'd already been halfway established at that point. So it was like, yeah, all right. So that means that you are likely going to find one of my videos at that point in time. And yeah, it's a very strange game. It's a very strange way how it works. But yeah, like, I suppose in the way I would, there's another thing you can use to compare it as well. Weirdly, I'm going to use a Pokemon analogy, and I'm only going to use a Pokemon analogy because I've only recently really got into it. But okay, in 2023 they released a new expansion to Scarlet and Violet in the card game called 151, which is the original 151 in the late 90s, the one that everybody knows, all in the anime, blah blah blah. And that, once I noticed that was one of the sparks that got me back into it, right? Because it was like, you've hit me where it's nostalgic. It's hit me in this, like, I remember collecting these cards. I never learned how to play the game, blah, 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 blah. And then it's like, all right, so all these people in the mid-90s are now, 30 plus. Let's release 151 and see how it does. And obviously it fucking sells out everywhere.
Yeah, of course.
And so... Yeah, so in a weird analogistic, I don't think there's a word for that, but yeah, in a weird, in a weird analogy kind of way, it's like, yeah, like I existed in a time on YouTube where the PlayStation 1 stuff just wasn't that talked about, and the age that I was 17 when I released my first Caddicarus video, quote unquote, and then that then reached to a certain demographic at a certain time, and the audience for YouTube was changing from kids watching viral videos and sharing them around school to people actually watching other people engaging, watching them like TV channels. And it wasn't quite the the middle-aged people. Plus, at that point, there were a lot of those people, but they were more looking at like how-to videos and DIY stuff, useful things. It all just kind of worked out. It was just luck, really. There's not really much else to say.
Because I know, like now, YouTube's my primary source, like entertainment. And it's like a show or something on streaming, I'm mostly just watching YouTube in the background.
Yeah, definitely.
When I'm not working.
It's kind of the major way that
most people do.
Yeah, that like you typically get your news from YouTube. You get a lot of your opinions from YouTube. You find like it's a good way to kind of curate content towards your interests, right? For better or for worse.
Yeah, that's the thing. Yeah, just we just said earlier, there's pros and cons to both ideas. I think from an entertainment perspective, I think there's more pros because it is just it's like public access TV back in the day, right?
Yeah,
it's the same idea. It's like you're seeing somebody, no matter how glossed up they make themselves, you're seeing someone to a degree unfiltered, and just like this is what they want to do. And then when things start getting very corporate or very monetized heavy or monetized focus, you can notice that. And then it's like, oh, so I'm not going to begrudge anyone doing that. Make your dough however you want to make it, and if you can make it doing this shit, fucking good for you. But there is a marked noticeable change in how people present themselves and how things look and feel. When it starts going to TV, it's then like, well, I'm just watching TV on the internet. I'm just going to go and find other people with much less subscribers that are actually just, they're taking risks, I guess. Nobody takes risks.
They're like a little more sincere, or their content might be a little more individualized, right? Yeah, I kind of agree with you there that like a lot of times YouTubers are like aping the models that have been established on television, like the talking head kind of format or certain documentary styles or whatever their presentation is, rather than like doing what they used to do on YouTube, where they would like define their style of content delivery, right? Like even with like video game channels, there was a lot more of an individual perspective back then, where like now a lot of times it feels like a very corporate or very churned out style of video game video.
It's funny, right? Because you can use this example nowadays, and you can also use it from back in the day. But like, you would have a channel like IGN, right? The YouTube channel of IGN, and that would have 10 million plus subscribers. Even like back in the day, it had millions of subscribers. It had millions of subscribers because it was IGN, and it was like, that's just what everyone knew was gaming news, right? So everybody would, if they just so happen to be on YouTube, it's like, oh, Game Trailers is on here, and IGN is here, and GameFAQs is here, and okay, let's see what they're doing on their channels. And then that's where the reviews would be there, and they were nice and short, and it was like, well, I don't want to read it on the internet, so why don't I just watch the video from the same people that I already read on the internet? And one thing leads to another. But then even looking at it that way, you can notice how different it is when it's like, here's IGN with 10 million subs, and then they do a review, and unless the review is of like the biggest game of all time, like ever, it's not gonna do well. It's not gonna do well views wise, because people like authenticity. And sadly, again, I'm not creating a commentary about it or anything, but there is a level of inauthenticity when it comes to that, and it's been there the whole time. There's always when it gets corporate, there's always somebody you got to be careful not to upset, like 3 different layers down the chain about something. And you can be honest, you can write how you want to say things in certain ways, but why would you tune into that when you can tune into someone else who recorded themselves in their bedroom and has nothing to gain?
For sure.
You know,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah, that's what I mean. Yeah, and that's the same. You could say that today. You could say that back then. IGN reviews were never like the biggest massive thing. Like corporate reviews on YouTube were never the biggest massive thing, unless it was like GTA 5 or something that was meme heavy or just like one of the biggest selling things of all time. And they don't do bad in views. Don't get me wrong, but it's just there's a marked shift when it's like. You can see someone like, I don't know, throwing a random name out there, but like Angry Joe talking about the same brand new AAA game. And it's like, whether you like Angry Joe or not, it's like, there's definitely a bigger audience command, a better relationship, more of a reason for people to want to look at him talking about a thing more than just nameless journalist on IGN. It's like, I'll read that shit in a newspaper, but I wouldn't seek it on YouTube.
Yeah. Because it's like, this guy has nothing to gain. He looks just like he plays games like me. I can see it's the face, not like nameless journalist. This is my opinion. This is the stuff I have to say about this. Blah blah. It's like you can pretty much like. I know it was a big paradigm shift because I know like the biggest thing was like that Kane and Lynch thing with IG. Was it GameSpot? The Kane and Lynch.
Yeah, it was GameSpot. It was GameSpot where they controlled the
Lynch was
review.
So bad. Yeah.
Oh, did they?
Well, it was I forget his name, the guy from Giant Bomb, the main founder of Giant Bomb. I think he wrote a very scathing review of Kane and Lynch while he was still working at GameSpot. But GameSpot was sponsored at the time by Kane and Lynch and IDOS. So there's a big controversy, and I believe he was let go and then went on to found Giant Bomb. Right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting. I mean, yeah. I mean, you would, wouldn't you, at that point? Because like that shit happens, and it's not okay. It's not right. You shouldn't. But then I'm like, I've heard of Giant Bomb way more than this Kane and Lynch specific GameSpot scenario. I know what Giant Bomb is, so that just goes to prove the point, right?
They like, established their individual voice, and like I think that's when you were seeing like a lot of those websites were popping up that were like grassroots games journalism, like essentially.
Yeah, but yeah, like it's easy to go on like a tangent about journalism and then leading into the obvious punchlines about that. But like everything exists for a reason, as far as I'm concerned, and people can have their opinions. But then you want to go about pros and cons because 1 second, one breath, I can say I would rather watch somebody filming themselves in their bedroom talking about a thing with nothing to gain, which is on surface level sounds like a decent thing. It's like talking to a stranger on the bus about a thing or something, right? Yeah. But then, as everybody knows, there's a fine line between that and crazy person. And then you end up with people that just parrot other people's opinions and they're parroting them because that's what they think they believe or they do believe, but they're parroting it from people that do have something to gain, but just not from the same angle as corporate, like people that pretend to not be corporate or not part of the the mainstream or whatever, and then they become the voice of those people, and then those people take it very seriously and to heart, and then you end up with Deadwing Dork's famous users.
I was gonna get into it. I was waiting for the segue because I was gonna say we don't like opinion bashers here on Very Late. Okay,
no, we don't.
We're very anti-opinion basher. Thank you, and I respect your opinion.
Thank you.
And I won't rant on you after this. I promise. I
might.
my good friend over here.
You can rant on me. You can rant on me because I can.
My arms are already full.
Wait, what would your name be? The Jet Set Radio and Hennessy Fan 2001? Is that your name, Zuki?
Yeah.
So like that was
sorry
okay. I was gonna say like it was kind of interesting how you and I crossed paths because we were both in that kind of sphere of people with like Deadwing Dork doing the user videos, and I would do some user coverage myself, and I recall when like you sent me a super chat and I went, holy fuck, is that Caddicarus? Why is he watching my video?
I remember that.
Yeah, it was very mind-blowing for me.
I think it was when you did the song with Deadwing. I think it was when you did User's Paradise.
User's Paradise,
Yeah, I was gonna look, and then I had a look, and it was like, oh yeah, this is more of what I was hoping it was gonna be. Yeah, absolutely. By the way, just for the sake of having it, out there, I don't, you never know who's gonna see these videos. You never know who's gonna think differently about you from when you're just talking openly in this kind of environment. But I will just say this right now: if anybody is aware of what the user community is, and if anybody is aware of I guess Deadwing's sense of humor, I guess your guys' sense of humor to a degree, I suppose, but like,
yeah,
I'm just talking from my perspective. Like, I'm an ADHD guy. I'm on the spectrum somewhere, God knows where. I'm not diagnosed with autism or anything. I know that autism is a thing. I know that lots of people struggle with that. And whenever I see people looking at these kinds of people, it's never from that lens. It's from the lens of, how did we get here when certain kinds of thoughts and certain kinds of beliefs just go through, and it's then shielded by that, I suppose. For sure. Is that's For and sure. That's where the comedy comes from, that's where the comedy
and
comes
it's
from.
Like I just to kind of speak on like at least what I've done and like what I observed with Claw and with other creators was like, my intent was always humor, right? Like I like telling jokes. I like building a relationship with people who watch my stuff. My whole philosophy is always funny all the time. Just want to make people laugh and have a good time. And I never wanted to approach any of that from like a malicious place. I always found it really interesting that these people exist. And they're so impassioned over like things that you would never really think someone would be that like deeply involved, right?
Impassioned, but
So
yeah, it's interesting, and it's like, and I've never been one to like people can make their jokes and comments about stuff like the Star Wars trailer guy, just as a random example. The guy the guy that cried over watching the trailer. Like, the people have made gags about it, and it's like, it's not the kind of gag I would probably make, maybe, but like I can see the angle of that. But then at the same time, there's more of a part of me that's like, oh, this dude just loves this thing. That's great, you know. Yeah. So when it gets, and that's what I do like about Deadwing, is that when it just becomes like, this person is just doing their thing, and he will just stop. He only looks for the people where it's like, whatever might be going on, it's like, oh, okay, so there might be autism there, but why are you talking about like these people want me to start killing Asian people because I'm not big on YouTube and stuff like that? It's like, oh, okay, all right. And yeah, that's what I find interesting. I find that very interesting. It's got nothing to do with the autism angle at all. Like, I've Jesus Christ, the amount of autistic people I've interacted with, worked with, no love. It's like, it's nothing to do with that at all. So no shade, no nothing. Like, it's interesting to see how, like you guys said, how far some people will go, because sometimes it can be as funny and as silly as, okay, this person has taken an idea so literally and so seriously because it might be because of autism or something, that they end up saying, oh well, because of A and B and X and Y, Hollywood is bad, and therefore if they review the Mario movie, that must mean it's bad, and that must mean, like it must be because it's not woke.
It's the slippery slope.
But like, those people are those people are prime examples of like comedy fodder as well. Like, I always focused on just kind of eccentric people who like, I can get a few roasts in and have a fun time telling some jokes. Like, one of the things that I had this recurring joke that I was making live, where I would keep talking about how like neurotypical people are extremely marginalized by the ever-growing, more popular, more powerful autistic community online. So like, obviously I've taken my shots at autism, but that's such an absurd joke to say that like people who are neurotypical are being bullied by autistic people. And I keep on saying it as a neurotypical person. I keep on going like, it's hard not having a hyperfixation and having to look people in the eyes. Like, it's comedy. You know, it's comedy. I don't.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's like, yeah, there's thing, yeah, I guess that it's all about the approach. It's all about how it's handled. It's there's so many examples of that you could go back to. But yeah, like just with users specifically, just for a one more point. But like, it's like, yeah, like using the guy, whoever that was, that said, oh well, Hollywood is bad because I believe that because of what I've taken from other people that have talked about Hollywood. Therefore, if they review something badly and I like it, that must mean that it's because of it not being woke or something.
Yeah.
Like, it's weird.
It's like a bizarre.
It's odd. Yeah, it's mental gymnastics.
It's just
but like,
bizarre
you
loop.
can have, you can have those people. They're not doing any harm or anything like that, right? It's just like so absurd. It's like, what is going on, right?
They're like benign people who've just kind of chosen to broadcast themselves, and like
they're like,
you know, they're
but what's interesting and why I guess that it is important to maybe spotlight some of it and not be so, you know, like Deadwing says, not a bully stream, but you know, like there is important sometimes to spotlight it, because a lot of things go unchecked, a lot of things go pushed aside, and what could start as, oh, I am that passionate about Hollywood bad, woke bad, that it then grows into something worse as they get older. You know, like it is important to keep that stuff in line, because if I was like, I don't know, let's say I was, it's a stupid example, but let's say, I don't know, I was diagnosed with ADHD when I was a kid, which I wasn't, but let's say I was, and I was one of the hyperactive ones where I ran around and jumped up and down and walked all over the walls and stuff, which I didn't. But let's say I was that kind of ADHD patient. Like, if I then, and I'm saying this because I did know someone back in the day that was like this, but this guy that we lived down the road with, this user that we lived down the road from back in the day, this was when we were like under 8-9 years old, but he had some neurodivergent thing, and this was back in the early 2000s when not much of that was known about or really given much, you know, seriousness to it. And he was one of those people where he would get away with, you know, actually, you know, hurting people really badly and properly getting into fights and then hiding behind when getting in trouble.
Like shielding.
I didn't have my meds today. Yeah. It's like, well, I've got this and I didn't have my meds today. And it's like, well, whether or not that's the case or not, it's an explanation. It's not an excuse. And even then, is it an explanation or is there something else going on?
Yeah, and that's a disturbing trend, right? When someone will shield with their challenge, where it's like the challenge you have is valid, and it's like you should have the supports that you need. But yeah, I'm sorry, Zuki, go ahead.
I said, yeah, that shouldn't be your go-to, because it's like, because it eventually goes, okay, is it really the challenge, or did you realize people will forgive me if I say this, and then I can cope on this as the coping mechanism instead of like trying to better.
It can be used inappropriately in situations for sure, and I've witnessed.
Yeah, this is where it gets difficult, because then what will happen is that if you make that kind of observation, then you'll have other potentially even autistic people that do see things more literally than other people, or their brain is wired in a certain way to take an observation like that in a certain way, and then it becomes a blanket statement for autistic people, which it's not. And this is what's happened with, you know, not getting into depth, but it's happened with politics, it's happened with everything, where I think the world as a whole has forgotten good people versus piece of shit people. The autism is irrelevant. The things going on behind the scenes might be explanations, they might be reasons, but ultimately it's like, oh, we need to do this because of, you know, because of this group of people. No, there are good people, there are bad people that just so happen to have autism or are neurotypical. There is a, and it sounds weird because then it takes away a bit of the nuance, but in a weird way, in and of itself is nuance, because what you're saying is, well, this is a bad person, why are they a bad person? And then you dissect the reasons, or this is a good person, why is that? It doesn't.
You have that. You have that.
And that's what politics is now, and it's just fucking depressing.
You have that willingness to make that distinction.
Yeah, and people will fail to realize that you got to loop it around. It's like there's no us to them. It's like like you said, there's good people, there's bad people. There's good people with challenges, there's bad people with challenges. it doesn't mean there's like any difference. Is that there's people or people.
You're defined like
yeah.
ultimately you're defined by your actions, and
Yeah.
you know those actions can obviously be impaired if there are those kind of barriers. But like one of the things that I kind of wanted to allude to is like a lot of times I will observe people who have those kinds of challenges or you know employ those tactics like using their autism or their ADHD as a shield, and they will often punch down and they'll like target people that they see as worse or beneath them, right? That they're like, this guy is more autistic than me, so we should mock him instead of me, right? Rather than no one should be mocked.
It's projecting. It's projecting. And it's funny because again, and then I guess my response to that would be that sounds like a shit person thing, not an autistic thing.
Absolutely,
you know? It just so happens that maybe there is an autistic element to it, which is why that's happening in the way that it's happening. But yeah, it's ultimately because how many millions of people exist? How many tens of millions, hundreds of millions of people exist with similar things that we're all dealing with? Like, we're all just fucking people. We all just want to put food on the table and survive, and it just gets so strange when it becomes about us versus them, or like, well, okay, well, I'm ADHD, but you're the bad kind of ADHD. It's like, no, it doesn't work like that, you know. It's just good people. And the problem is that if you have a bad person who, you know, whether it be because of sociopathy or psychopathy or whatever it might be, but then when you mix that with, you know, conditions or, you know, brain patterns where they take things too literally or whatever, then that's when things can get a little bit suspect. And then but it's not because of one single thing. It's just I
think it's just the coping mechanism with people, because you're like we're lazy inherently. So when we see something that's the biggest extreme or something that's the biggest example, our brain kind of wants to autocorrect. Like, that's how all people like this think. Until you really get to know like how people are, you're gonna make a default shortcut. The first thing you see and everyone around you reacting and telling you that's how these people act.
If you're like in a position where you're like speaking in absolutes, like you're taking things literally, or you lack that ability to approach things from a objective perspective,
then you're a Sith.
You're a Sith. You're unfortunately a Sith. You're probably going to kill some younglings. You're going to turn to the dark side. You're a Sith.
Hold on.
What?
I was a Sith my whole life with dealing in absolutes.
Yeah, unfortunately, check your midichlorians, man. Like, you should go to the doctor, bro.
No, but there's so many bad Twilight chicks, and I want to have like Force babies with them. You telling me I can't if I'm a Jedi?
You're a Jedi. You gotta keep that shit locked up, man.
Nah. See, if Yoda gooned more, he would have saw Anakin.
Who's that fucking Jedi with the long ass head and the Fu Manchu? That guy, he looks like he goons. That guy's in the cave.
Monday.
How do you know his name?
Oh God,
bro.
Yeah, I know the one.
Yeah, that guy's straight gooning.
I thought y'all know I fucked with Star Wars, bro.
I do too. I don't know that guy's name though. We'd be cracking a lot of jokes. I wanted to talk about humor a bit because, like, you do inject a great deal of comedy into your videos. Your videos are always hilarious. And a lot of your comedy is very absurd and very like bombastic. So, like, when it comes to writing a video where it's both like an effective video talking about a game and entertaining, like, how do you strike that balance? Like, what goes into that process of going like, okay, I got to add these jokes. I got to make sure that my audience really connects with what I'm saying.
Do you know what's funny? You don't.
Oh, okay. Well, short question. All right, moving on.
No, it's honestly, I know that's a bit of a wanker answer, but honestly, it really does feel like that. If you were to ask me that question pre-2020, I would have my entire system laid out for you, because there was there were formulas, and there were so many checklist things that I felt like I had to do, and I had to write shit down that was relevant, and I was always diligently note taking and blah blah blah. And you know what's weird is that I came to a point where I realized through multiple lenses. I mean, this is a separate fucking story, but like that, I realized very slowly that I was miserable doing what I was doing, and it was not paying off in any way. And my life was getting worse. My health was terrible. I wasn't getting enough money to, support my family, cover the rent, blah, blah, blah. Things were just getting worse. And I was like, am I doing this because I actually want to, or is it because I feel like I've been pigeonholed and I have to do things this way? And I was like, I don't want to lose this. So if I keep doing things in this way, because it worked so great in 2014, then maybe in 2019 it will still work. Shit, no, it doesn't work like that. Human beings don't work like that. The YouTube algorithm doesn't work like that. Entertainment doesn't work like that. Shit changes. And hitting rock bottom in 2019 when I was looking for work, I was ready to just quit YouTube. I was like, yeah, the ride's been fun, but I'm done now. And I was looking for work, and I realized, you know what, I'll do one more video. And that was my, at the time, the PS4 store video, the thing. It was like, at the time, it was one of the longer videos I'd done, and it was like, this is going to be my farewell, my final fantasy. It's going to be, I don't give a fuck anymore. And it was like, I'm not going to talk about shit that's trending. I'm not going to talk about shit that I think my audience would like to see. I'm not going to talk about stuff that I'm associated with. I'm not going to even try and review fucking anything. Like my opinion actually means that much in the grand scheme of things. I'm just going to try and do what I want to do and what I've been wanting to do for years and was just never brave enough to do. So, and it worked out. So, long answer to your question, I don't intend things to be informative. I don't intend things to strike a balance. I don't intend anything. What I intend to do is this a funny video idea? How many ways can I do funny, stupid shit? And then that's where the basis comes from. And then however I talk about it is just however I talk about it. There's not much planning behind it now. It's just what feels natural, what feels right. And it wasn't like that for a long time. It was very much like, I have to start the video with a cold open, and then after that cold open is the intro. After the intro, I have to have a little introduction and maybe another joke, and then I have to, in the introduction, use the same background music while I'm explaining the backstory about a thing, and then I've got to make sure that I talk about the good things and make jokes, and then I've got to talk about the bad things and then make jokes, and then I've got to make sure it all ties up in a bow at the end with a gun and a Star Trek phaser, and then one of them goes to the heavens and the other one gets shot, and then everything just got so formulaic and so strict. It was just like, why, and people still message me nowadays and are like, they enjoy that, or it's nostalgic for them. It's like, yeah, great. I think it's fucking trash because I know where it was coming from. It was coming from a place of, it was coming from a place of, oh, these are the musts. These are the what to do.
You have to like hit these beats all the time, right?
I got you, because you kind of looped it back to what you was talking about. Things going too corporate. You felt yourself going corporate. It's like formula must be. This.
It's funny as well because you could definitely use that as a comparison, but then even back then it didn't feel like it was about feeling corporate in like a monetary sense or in a business sense. It was feeling corporate in a sense of, I'm now just a factory. I am a machine. This is, it's. I think it'd be mean to call my older stuff slop, but the truth of the matter is, when you've gone from uploading 3 videos a fucking week to what I'm doing now, where it's like, I got 2 videos uploaded last year. Look at me go. When you go from that to that, and yet the latter is proving 10 times more effective in terms of engagement, views, ad revenue, sponsorships, reach, really every single element of, quote unquote YouTube success. When the latter is proving it, and in order for me to reach that point, all I had to do was stop giving a fuck. Then it's like, oh, okay. So that's why I said, to answer your question, it was like, no, there isn't a do or a don't. It's like, back in the day, yes, and it ruined my head. It completely just ruined the creative process. It ruined what I felt like I could do. It's been a weird journey. Yeah.
Wow.
Because I think that's like a threshold. I think it's just when you get older, wait a minute, I don't give a fuck. I'm just gonna do what make me
Yeah.
happy. And
Yeah, there's an
turns
element
out,
of that, and yeah.
damn, what made you happy is what make other people happy.
Yeah, and then it makes you extra happy because then it does 10 million times better than anything ever did before. And it's like, well, so there is that element of grappling with, have I just wasted my time? But then you have to look at the whole journey and be like, well, no, because I've learned a lot since. I've learned a lot about how the fucking game is played. I've learned a lot about all this shit. And, everyone starts somewhere. And,
Yep.
as long as there's somebody that can binge watch 18-year-old me overly screaming as angrily as possible over a bootleg PS2 101 Dalmatians ripoff, then you know what? I think it's cringe. I think it's shit. I think it's aged terribly. But if you get something from that, who am I to take that away from you? It's something I did. I can't run away from it.
Yeah.
It's one of the reasons I've ended up in my weird way where I am now. That's cool. Whatever. But yeah, there isn't really a balance at all. And it's funny because people do say that they like how informative my videos are, and it's like, dude, I don't even fucking try. I don't all I'm trying to do is make an entertaining video. If I was making a documentary or an essay, or I was actually trying to critique something, then yes, out would come all of my research, and I would be spending all day on searching, not Wikipedia, just going everywhere. But nowadays it's like, I'm going to call this game the wrong name. I don't give a shit what year it came out. I don't care, because that's not the point. Right. But then back in the day, I got to a point, I guess, where in my late teens, early 20s, where I don't. Do you want to say the ego got to me? Maybe, but like this element of, do you know what? I now have a voice, and I have a voice that people listen to. I have a responsibility to be honest when I say that Croc is a 5 out of 10 because of this and that. When in reality, I fucking love Croc. I've always loved Croc. And that hasn't changed. But if you watch my original Croc video from like 2014, you'd think I was in some sort of like inner conflict with myself, because it's like, guys, I have to be integral. I'm a journalist, and I have to be honest when I say that the tank controls in this 20-year-old 32-bit 3D platformer are not that ideal, and that means that the level design cannot be reached to its full potential. And why would you play this when you could play Mario 64 with the movement? And it gets toxic. It gets so ridiculous. And I guess some people like that element to it, but they look at it as like, oh, look, he's going over analytical over an old game. That's funny. But I'm telling you, as the guy that made them, I was going over analytical because I wanted to go over analytical. If you thought that was funny, that was an unintended side effect. I wanted the jokes to be funny and my critiques to be taken seriously. And then when you look at it through that lens, it's embarrassing.
Because it's like, why would you make this funny ass video if you wanted people to make the jokes as jokes and not tag, oh, he's a funny guy and he doesn't really like this game? Because that's what they're gonna think about it. Even though you just said, no, this is the best game I played, but I'm trying to be as objective as possible.
Yeah, and it's like, and there is a place for that, but then is that place for, like we were talking about at the beginning of this call, is that place for the corporate mainstream journalistic review world where everybody's going to see what these people are saying and they are the voice of the people, quote unquote? Or does it matter when it's just a guy from England that's just trying to do Monty Python shit? Like, but for some reason you kind of get into this thought pattern of, well, if I play Croc and then I say that I love it, then people aren't going to take me seriously because
how could you love a bad game
with it?
Yeah.
Exactly. So it's like, yeah, okay, I would throw jokes in there and I try and make it lighthearted, but ultimately, all I'm doing is shooting myself in the foot, and then that then becomes, toxic in a sense, because then when, I don't know, further discussion goes on with other forums or Reddit or other YouTube comments, if someone else does a video on Croc, wherever it will end up, then it's like, well, then my words in those videos get used in a platforming sense. It's like people start looking up to that as like, oh, he's got some good points and I believe him, and I couldn't explain what I was trying to say until he put it into words. And it's like, I never wanted it in the critical sense. I just wanted to make people laugh, but I went too far in the other direction. And I realized I didn't like it. I just didn't.
Wow.
Man,
I mean, that's
a lot.
It's weird. It's really weird. Like, I know I'm rambling.
no,
a lot, but it's
no,
like,
it's quite
No, we like
welcome.
that.
Yeah, and that's
What's gonna be good for your documentary from Cad to the Riches?
yeah,
Cats
I
to
suppose it would
riches.
be. Oh my god, yeah, from cads to riches. Yeah, great.
Yeah.
Caddicarus story.
But yeah, it is really weird because yeah, it's. Do you know what there was a period where this was pre-2020, and this might have been one of the things that made me realize that I had been approaching this all wrong. So I got an email from somebody, and they were talking about like, and I've always had fan mail and stuff, and people talking about like, oh, they agree with me on this, or oh, I relate to you on that. But this person, and it was only one person that did this, and it was enough for me to be like, I need to change what I'm doing and how I'm doing it. Somebody messaged because around that time, so it might have been pre-29. Whenever The Haunting of Hill House came out on Netflix, which is a great miniseries if no one's seen it. But whenever that show came out, one of the actresses, or was it Haunting of Bly Manor? I think it was Bly Manor, the sequel series, which, yeah, because there were kids in that. And one of the kids, I think, was one of the original Peppa Pig voices, or the current Peppa Pig voice. Oh. And this person this user had emailed me and essentially gone down this idea of, I need your help to help boycott this show because they shouldn't allow such a toxic, terrible toddlers cartoon show.
Hold on.
Yeah, and
the actor is actually Peppa Pig.
I think so. I can't remember. I'm very hazy with the memory, but one of the actors in one of those shows, I'm almost certain, was one of the Peppa Pig voices, because there've been multiple over the years. Because obviously the actresses
Kids
get
grow
older.
up, yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, but this one girl was one of them, and it was like they don't respect good child actors because she's terrible in this show that you said was shit. And that's the thing, right? It's funny, it is, and I could very easily have read that and been like, this is fucking insane, right? But then when I started looking back, I was like, what gave this person that kind of impression from my video? I was curious. And then when I'm thinking back and watching this back, or I'm thinking about things I filmed with the Peppa Pig videos I've done, I'm like, this is embarrassingly edgy for the sake of edgy. And there is some element of this grown man is overreacting to the toddler thing. There is an element of that. But then when it starts going into, well, there's no excuse for this to have gone wrong because it's animation. They would have seen this mistake. I hope someone got fired for that blunder. Yeah, exactly. When it starts getting into that, I know what the fuck I'm talking about. It just gets too toxic for its own good.
No doubt.
And then,
for toddlers. Why are you looking this deep into it?
I can't believe iconic user the Sonic Sega Gamer reached out to you, Caddy. I can't believe it.
Oh man, you know what? It might have been. It may have been.
That sounds like our boy.
It might have been, you know. And then it's funny because then
when I help to stop this child now.
Oh man,
help me!
It's funny as well because that then led on to discovering Deadwing, and then he found Dogs Eating Dogs 6. Great guy, and then that then led to me getting into his chat, and I basically said this is just 1 degree separation from what I could have been, and it's just really because I see Dogs Eating Dog 6 and those kinds of rant viewers, and I'm I'm not my older stuff in many ways is not too far off. And it's that's what that's what happens if the symbiote bonds to you while you're making a review. That's how you end up being a user. But, you have to go down a dark path.
About it is.
And the sad thing is that
find the bill to take the symbiote off, though.
Yeah, exactly. And it's the sad thing, I suppose, with Dogs Eating Dog 6 being an example, is that at least with him, the dude is selling the anger. And you watch my stuff, from, you know, pre-2020, and I'm like, if I want to be angry about a baby show and be like, this is the whole point of the joke, I'm not even selling that joke. I'm actually trying to critique as well as do stupid absurdist humor, which I don't think it mixes very well looking back. And it's like, it's really weird. So it's like, if anybody is going to do that kind of thing, leave the Dogs Eating Dog 6 people to do that kind of thing. It's like, because it's like, okay, if you want to sell this idea that, you know, All Engines Go by Thomas the Tank Engine is going to make grown men in their 20s that angry, if you want to sell that, fucking go for
Hell
it.
Hell yeah. He's good at selling it, though.
Yeah. You're peeking the mic and everything, and you're screaming, and it's so good. And it's like,
I mean, he rules. Like,
know?
the thing with him especially is like, now Zuki, myself, a lot of people that I got together made a parody of his stuff. Made a video called The Super Brainz Kingdom where I parody his style.
Oh, I didn't see that shit. I'm gonna have to see it.
Oh my god, I'll send it to you. It's a classic.
Yeah.
I not to toot my own horn, but it's my masterpiece.
Hey.
but you know, ultimately I made it as like an homage where I affected like that kind of vocal delivery, and I had people like user ranting and stuff, and like characters from games I like would appear. But
Mega Man, yeah,
it's like very endearing. And like the upsetting thing about him now is like he took it the wrong way, like not what I did, but maybe all of it. Like everyone just kind of going like, whoa, take a look at this guy. And he walked back a lot of stuff, and he's like making pretty calm, like subdued videos now. But you know, at the same time, I'm of the belief that, you know, that's great. I hope he's like having fun making these videos. I see a lot of people who are like, he's not angry anymore. It's like, good. I hope he's having a fun time now, you know, like,
why you want to see somebody in misery all the time?
I hope
like,
he's...
Damn.
Well, this is the thing, right? So if the intent from, like, obviously you can only speculate, but if the intent from Dogs Eating Dog 6 specifically was, I'm going to overreact to this toddler's show because that in and of itself is very funny, then it's like, okay, cool. But then he's unable to deal with the comments for, you know, whatever reason, whether, you know, whether it be neurodivergence or whatever. But if he's unable to deal with the comments that may come his way in regards to how he conducts himself, then it's like, he thought he was happy doing what he was doing, but then he realized, actually, do you know what? I can't keep doing this because I don't like the response it's getting. So how about instead I do, you know, I take it back a bit because that would make me happier in the long run. And then, like you said, you'll have people in the comments saying, oh, he's not angry anymore. It's not funny. And it's like, well, that says to me, he didn't want those people watching for that. He didn't want that.
I think he just, you know, he just wanted to make his content. And like, it kind of comes back to what I was saying about like, neurodivergent people punching down at someone slightly more neurodivergent than them, where it's like, you know, the first thing I thought of when I saw that, I was like, oh, that's too bad that he's not like the kind of creator that made me laugh before. But I'm happy he's making his stuff his way. Good for him. You know, he's not hurting a fly.
Because right? Ultimately you're looking at it through the lens of you liked his older style for the reason that you liked it. But then I think maybe lots of other people, maybe 50-50, maybe more people were looking at it as, like you said, like, hey, take a look at this guy,
another person to mock.
And,
exactly.
And if he was the kind of person that didn't care about that or embraced it or actually was like, yeah, this is the whole point. Like, yes, if you're commenting about how angry I am and that in of itself is a problem to you, then you've missed the joke, right? And then you could work that with yourself, and he would still be doing what he's doing now. But clearly he didn't want that. So the people like you or me who are watching it from this kind of angle of, this is funny that he's overreacting this badly, but I would never ever say to him, what the hell are you doing? What's wrong with you? You know, it's like, yeah, it's just different people take different communities and different people within those communities in different ways, and that then influences other people to behave in certain other ways, and then it's just a trickle, and then and that's when it starts getting really, really interesting. But yeah, so I suppose in a weird way, like in a very weird way, how Dogs Eating Dog 6 ends up going into his current era, that's almost how I wanted it, because it was like he didn't want people watching his videos and being like, what, like, not being in on the joke with how he was doing things. He didn't want that. He wanted everyone to be in on the joke, and he couldn't handle people not being in on the joke. So that's fine, but I couldn't handle people in a weird way being like, well, you need to be more angry about this. Why aren't you more angry?
Yeah.
Because you usually are.
Get angrier.
Like, I didn't want that. So then I was like, oh, actually, do you know what? Maybe this isn't what I wanted. And maybe I actually all the time wanted to just be stupid. So now I'm in a position where if I get an email from somebody that says something similar to that, like, hey, do you remember Life of Black Tiger on PS4? You did a video about it in 2020. Isn't it the worst thing ever? Well, the guy has come back with another game. Are you going to talk about it? Because are you going to tear it apart? I can look at that email and be like, you've missed the point.
Right.
Yeah.
Whereas before with the Peppa Pig email I got, I was like, I could sit here and say you've missed the point, but actually, I think you've got a good point. You've taken something here that I actually understand, and I'm not okay with that. You know, it's being comfortable with yourself. It's self-awareness. It's and maybe that's what Dogs Eating Dog 6 got, a little bit of self-awareness.
I'm honestly very happy for the guy. Like
I'm happy for him too.
I find it kind of disappointing that like a lot of people in that sphere are so devoid of actual humor that they're not able to like play off of that and, you know, even make that funny that he's walked back that kind of stuff. They just desperately needed a villain for them to go, oh yeah, this guy sucks. You know, he gets so angry about stupid stuff. Like when he stopped making the videos that he was making, I just went like, you know, like I said, hey, good for him. I'm probably not going to check out his videos anymore, but you know, like that's cool that he's making lists or whatever. Good for him. Like, I hope he has fun with this hobby.
Speech.
Yeah.
And then there's the kinds of I mean, to use buzzwords and shit, but then there's the bad faith people who are kind of like, oh, see, you can use this again, politics and all sorts of other shit, but you could say, oh, look, that guy got censored. He felt like he had to change in order to do better. Whereas I'm sitting here like, no, because I mean, I guess it's creative person to creative person, but I'm sitting there looking at the situation going, oh no, I think he wanted to do what he was doing and then realized that's not what he thought he wanted to do because I've been in that situation. Yeah. Sometimes you're just like that. And
the guy's got autonomy, right? Like he has the ability to make that decision. Anyone does.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, you can double down and that's the thing. If he did double down, then I think more people would be in on the joke and it would be, you know, what it was. But for whatever reason, he didn't want to double down because he didn't like the attention or whatever.
I really respect it because he had like a lot of big creators talking about him, and he valued his idea more than whatever fleeting popularity he would have gotten from doubling down.
Yeah. And then what's also good about it, like again, like from the people that are watching from like the VIP box and just to watch everything fall apart and burn. For those people, it's a bit disappointing because then you won't get any more, you know, Omni Kings rants and stuff like that. But
Omni King.
Then you're like, well, actually, okay, let's take a look at the whole picture, right? He starts his YouTube stuff doing the kind of thing that everyone thought was funny that he was doing it. Like I'm like yelling at Peter Griffin and Peter.
He's becoming more insufferable. That all that stuff.
So absolutely. So you have that end and you see where that's going, but then it very quickly rolled into, these kids are bullying me and my friends, and I'm going to make an hour and 40-minute long rant video about these children. And then you're like, okay, so this, people can find it funny. It is a little bit funny. But then when you actually take a step back and think about it, it's like, oh, so this is actually affecting this guy. And now the spotlight has been put on him, and he could have doubled down and done more rants on more kids, and because that was the joke. But clearly that wasn't the joke, because if it was, he would have kept doing it. But then he was like, oh, hang on, it wasn't a good idea to send death threats to a 7-year-old. And then he mellowed down, and his videos are different now, and the Omni King is a different kind of person now. But I think it's a net good because the self-awareness is there now, and now there's going to be no more kids that are going to be spotlighted in a, mid-20-year-old man telling them to kill themselves.
Yeah,
because
it's a great it's a great face turn. Like
it's a great net positive for everybody.
Yeah, his videos might suffer from an entertainment perspective, but I'm happy he did what he had to do.
Yeah, because he clearly wasn't okay doing it. Like, if he was, he would have kept doing it. Like, people's minds don't change that quickly. Like, because if it was like, oh, he took the criticism badly and that's why he's not yelling anymore, I would be like, yeah, that could be that. But then why wouldn't he still be doing rant videos on kids with a quieter voice?
Right.
Like, I don't think it was ever like a thing he wanted to genuinely be known for. I think it was for him. I think that the Omni Kings drama, if you want to call it that, was like a massive deal.
It was quite genuine. Yeah, it was like, it was a major issue.
I don't think he intended. Yeah, I don't think he intended it for it to be something that we would be talking about in this situation right now.
Yeah.
So that's why it is a good thing ultimately that he got the self-awareness, because if he could have been a troll, and trolls will just double down, and he clearly is not that kind of person. Right. And it's like, well, I'm glad, because I don't want to keep supporting a guy that is going to keep on doing death threat 2-hour-long rant videos on school children. I don't want that, because then it's not funny anymore. It just, after a while, it's like
you become what's his face? You become Eric Payton or Foxwolf, where you're like, oh, this guy is actually quite concerning.
Yeah, exactly. Because there's only so much you can look at. Someone like Foxwolf is a good example, because it's like, how many times could Deadwing look at somebody like that in a stream? Like, he's looked at him once, I think, and it's like, what more do you need? Yeah. It's like, this has happened. He is saying these things. It's pretty fucking awful. It's terrifying. Whatever the reason might be is irrelevant. This is happening, and whatever trolls may or may not do in the comments is beside the point. Getting a reaction and whatever, but ultimately, it's like, what can you say? Like, the initial joke will become old very quickly.
Yeah, beyond like, going, wow, this guy is actually dangerous.
Crazy.
Like, that's kind of the initial absurdity about him. Like, even when, I took a look at him and made a little video about him, I was like, initially you think, oh, this guy is just a user, right? And then he says something so, like, absurdly violent or strange out of the blue, like breathing air. Like, he will just say something that you're like, wow, this has escalated like significantly in no time. And that's initially very funny. But then, you look into him more and you're like, oh yeah, this guy like genuinely needs some help and like some support.
Yeah, and it's like, so then let's do another stream and look at more of his videos. It's like, what's going to change? Like, this is obviously a genuine thing. Yeah. It's obviously just, that's just the case. It's not someone who is going to learn or gives a shit. And it's like, yeah, all right. So now he's gone down in infamy. And you could say, I mean, Jesus, Randy Stare, like loads of people like that.
Yeah.
It's very strange. It's very strange.
That kind of brings me to my next point, because we were talking about like reconciling those challenges as a creator, right? So when it comes to your growth as a creator, what are some things that like you enjoy that you've really shifted towards, some things that you're happy you've sort of left behind? You've sort of alluded to that already, but like, even with like the fact that you've collaborated and networked a fair bit as a creator with other people in that sphere.
So what was the question? Sorry.
So like, what are some things that helped you really kind of foster your growth as a creator, like specifically with like collaborating and networking?
Oh god, do you know? So I'm going to say this, and I think this will be something that it might be a hard truth for people to hear nowadays if they're trying to get into this shit today. But back in the day, collaboration was all the thing, and getting your name out to other people was all the thing. There was a time on YouTube when I started where bigger channels that subscribed to you would just go and it would hit the news feeds of every other person of the subscriber of that channel. So when back in the day, the Completionist and Peanut Butter Gamer and all those people would subscribe to me. Their followers would know that they subscribe to me automatically. So there was this big element of collaboration back then, and just being in the loop, being in the know. And I'm not saying for a second that doesn't help now, but I think at this point, the whole who you know and what you know idea, I don't think it's as useful as it was unless you already know people that are fucking huge, like massive people. And it also depends what you do as well. So yeah, like maybe back in the day, all the collaborations I've done helped foster more growth, but for me and what I do now, collaborations don't really help anybody. It's more just a kind of novelty crossover more than anything. Right. But I think that comes with what you do more than anything else, because yeah, again, back in the day it was important because there was this audience spread that was encouraged by the channels that are like, hey, they subscribed to this person, and then all the other people following that person be like, oh, who's this person that my subscribed channel just subscribed to? Oh, I'll go and look at them. So there was an element of that, but like, unless it's like a news channel or something, or like an opinion-based channel where it's like, oh, I'm collaborating with someone here because they have a perspective to bring. And then if someone's watching that person, they're like, oh, he or she has got interesting perspectives, I'm going to look at them. That's a lot more of a different kind of collaborative sharing growth situation than, oh, I do funny video. Here's a new person who just so happens to be friends with person doing funny video. Does that mean that their videos will be just as funny? Probably not. I don't know. Maybe. It doesn't give people the same level of incentive to check someone out. Mm-hmm. But that's just because of what I do, I think. Entertainment's a tricky one. It's like nobody's going to want to watch, like, I'm just trying to think of a random... I'm using this as a random example because I've only just started watching it. Parks and Rec, right? Okay. Only just started watching it. It's pretty funny. Louis CK's in it. I've seen Louis CK bits before. I know some of the weird shit allegations and stuff. Yeah. I know some of that. But like, if you're watching Parks and Rec, like I went into Parks and Rec and I was like, oh, Louis CK's here. And then Karis, my partner, was like, who's that? She doesn't know who he is. I was like, oh, he's a stand-up comedian, and then I went over the whole wanking off thing, and it was like, okay, yeah, so that's this person. But when you're watching Parks and Rec, him being in it is like, oh, cool, he's in it.
Yeah.
But it's not going to make you want to go, I want to watch his stand-up.
Right. Or like, yeah, I'm not going to watch his show because I saw him in that scene dating Leslie.
Because it's yeah, absolutely. There's a difference between the entertainment angle and then the, opinionated people feeling like, oh, well, I'm going to follow this person so I feel more secure in myself. And, that's why like those kinds of people, commentary channels tend to really feed off each other quite well, because then it's not just about the entertainment, it's about self-assurance and about, oh, well, I feel this certain way and I found someone else who feels a certain way. So at that point, is it actually about the personality, or is it about the opinion? Or is it, at that point, I suppose, it's entertainment versus everything else. So back in the day, yeah, it would have worked, but that was because of how YouTube worked. But nowadays, yeah. I wouldn't say, like, I can't imagine that kids watching a Mr. Beast video that collabs with 1 million other people with 10 million subs that no one's heard of. I can't imagine that those kids watching Mr. Beast would then go and check out that other person that he's collabed with. If you know what I mean, because it's just not that kind of. But I don't know. I mean, I'm just guessing. But like, it has that kind of vibe to it. But then if Mr. Beast was like a talkative news anti-woke channel, then bringing somebody in who then has very similar thoughts and will throw in occasional things that maybe are a bit edgier than Mr. Beast or something, then that might appeal to another child, I guess. I don't know. Yeah, it's a different thing. Like, yeah, and with entertainment, yeah. Yeah,
extremely conservative Absolutely. Child going like, my politics align with this Mr. Beast.
Ah, yes, Mr. Beast.
Yeah, that's what I mean. So I don't. I mean, I don't know for sure, but I'm gonna say that collaboration for what I do doesn't really. It's cool to do, but it doesn't help anybody in my specific situation. Back then, it would have done, but that was more because of how YouTube itself worked. There were a lot less people. There were a lot less people making videos. There were a lot less people talking about PlayStation. A lot less people doing videos in that John Tronny style. There were a lot less people doing that. Whereas now, I mean, Jesus Christ, I'm going to Google this really quickly. How many videos are uploaded to YouTube a second? 1 hour of video goes up every second on YouTube.
Yeah.
So, you got to compete with that. And it wasn't great back in the day, 10, 15 odd years ago, but it was a lot better than that now because everybody wants to fucking do it. And
carve out that niche,
Yeah, it's just times have changed. So, yeah, long-winded answer, but yeah, in a way, yes, but in a way now, no.
No, I mean, that's very enlightening too, because I think like a lot of times a creator will go or an emerging creator will go, okay, all I need to do is establish myself with a bigger creator, right? And I'm going to get a fraction of their audience. They're going to gravitate towards my stuff because they like him, they'll like me, right? That's typically the logic that goes into it. So that makes sense, that especially now with things being a lot more oversaturated, a lot more competitive, you don't have that same net growth off of collaborating with someone bigger than you or someone who's like adjacent to you in the content you make.
Yeah, it's and that kind of feeds into what I was talking about, how I got to where I am nowadays, post 2020. There is that big element of just stepping back and not giving a fuck anymore, because if you play the game as a new creator too seriously, too heavily, then you end up forgetting why you did it in the first place, which is you enjoyed doing it. You were okay putting hours and hours and hours of your life into creating a thing for people to enjoy. And then when it becomes, well, why is no one watching? And what do I have to do differently? And who do I need to know? And what's the secret? At that point, it's like, all right, yeah, I get it. Like, being paid for what you do is it's great. Don't get me wrong. Not going to be, a contrarian, but starting out, it's like, at this point, all you can do is what you want to do. Because if you come up to, if someone comes up to me and says, like, I want to be a new Let's Player, have you got any advice? My first thing would be, do you know how many fucking Let's Players there are?
It's the most oversaturated audience.
Exactly. It's like, and if you want to jump into an oversaturated market, that's absolutely fine, but you need to be aware that it's an oversaturated thing. So if you want to be a Let's Play channel, then you need to know you are doing it because you want to be a Let's Play channel, not because you want a career as a Let's Player. If you've gone into it like that, you've lost at the first hurdle.
Yeah. Especially now, you 15 years too late. Like,
I mean, even back then it wasn't the easiest thing in the world. Like, I mean, PewDiePie was massive then, Markiplier was massive back then. I can't think, but then I've never really like watched Let's Play shit religiously though, so I couldn't tell you. But yeah, like I'm sure it was more like just a couple of personality, Jacksepticeye. So there was a couple of personalities I could count on my two hands maybe, but nowadays I wouldn't be able to tell you who was popular, who the breadwinners are. I could not tell you. And all you got to do is type in Let's Play on YouTube and then sort by most recently uploaded, and that just gives you, if you're doing it because you just want to fucking record yourself playing a game and making jokes, go for it. But if you are asking me advice on how to start a channel and be a creator in a business sense, I would say fucking don't do Let's Playing unless you've got something brand new. And at that point, how much is brand new? There's not much more you can do. So all you can really do is what you want to do. And if it works, fucking fantastic. If it doesn't, who gives a shit? You did what you wanted, right?
I think that's a real major component that's being lost in like the more recent shift in content creation, is that it's so focused on monetization and making this into a business and making it into a career, that many people who get into it forget that it is also like a fun hobby, right? That it should be a thing you enjoy first and foremost, right? And your content is going to be a lot better if you like to make it. But you're so often hit with this deluge of, here's how you get your metrics up. You got to fix your thumbnails. You have to do this. Use these keywords. That
you best be making them shorts.
Yeah, that you got to start making shorts, right? That you lose the plot and you forget that this is just fun, right? Or that's like the goal, is to make a fun thing to share with people.
Yeah, because at that point it's like, if you and I'm not going to name names, but I've witnessed and I've been friends with multiple people that have gone through this decline of like, I don't get why things aren't going the way they were, and I'm losing money, and I might be needing to look for another job, and I blah blah blah. And it's like, okay, I understand, I get it. It would be frustrating, it would be heartbreaking. I was heartbroken in 2019. You know, for a lot of people, I would imagine it's not about I'm above janitorial work or whatever. It's not. I don't think a lot of people, I mean, maybe some of them, but I think a lot of people are more just like, they don't want to lose what they have because they're one of, you know, God, what are the chances of making a career on YouTube for an individual? They must be, the odds are too stacked against you. So
winning the lottery is better.
So it's kind of like, so there's that side of it where there's that desperation, I guess. But then when it becomes, I'm grinding out videos and I'm exhausted and I'm mentally drained and I'm tired and I'm miserable, at that point it's like, why don't you get a job then? Because if you're gonna be mentally drained, exhausted, pissed off, miserable, working in a bank, then why wouldn't you just work in the bank and have guaranteed money coming in rather than putting it all on YouTube when you're clearly not enjoying
like hypothetical money, you know, like
hypothetical money.
Oh well, yeah. But it's a difficult balance to nail. And I mean, I can only talk from my own experience, but it is just really strange for me, and very, very fortunate that I spent maybe from 2015 until 2019 doing stuff that I did not want to do. It was stuff I thought I had to do, and I kind of tricked myself into thinking, yeah, this was good. This is what I was working towards. Yeah, this is what I wanted. This is what I was hoping for when I started getting big and I peaked in 2014. And then, you know, time goes on, you get older and everything, and then you're like, okay, do you know what? If I'm going to create anything, I'm just going to do whatever the fuck I want. And if no one gets it, or if no one likes it, or if people think I'm a huge piece of shit, or they don't like that I'm not uploading as much as I used to, or whatever, I don't care, because I'm happier doing that than I am doing the other thing that, you know? And then what was fortunate was that ended up being 1,000 times more successful for me anyway. So it's like, oh shit, I should have done this from day one. You know?
Yeah, you unfortunately don't have that foresight like when you're originally in that issue, but like,
but that always comes with age though, because you like starting out young, you're like, okay, I got to do what's impressionable, blah blah. It's just like kind of like when you're working in a business. When you're young, no one takes you seriously because like you're not a seasoned veteran. But then you're like, I know my worth. I know what I want. I know myself now that I've grown mentally. You know what you want to do for yourself moving forward. You know what you want to bring into the world.
Yeah, it's a very exploitative system. It's very like, the amount of like basically. I mean, it's very simple, right? If someone is trying to sell you a solution, they're selling you, but like it's snake oil. It's shit. Like, because if there was a solution, if there was a trick, everybody'd be fucking doing it, and nobody would, you know, that you couldn't sell it in a exactly. Yeah, you can't, and you wouldn't be selling it for $3.99 on Audible. You know, it would be worth millions. It'd be worth
everyone would be a millionaire. Everyone would have everything they needed, right? But that's that's the thing too, is like, you know, even at my level of content creation, like, you know, and we'll get into it, this isn't like my main passion or anything. It's like just something kind of fun that I always liked doing. But even then, I've gotten into that mental trap where I'm like, what do I have to do? Why did this video flop? What am I doing? Right. And like, I would lose sight of why I even started doing this stuff in the first place. And that said, like,
and
my, you know, sub 3K YouTube career. Like I mostly focus on like music stuff that I'm relatively successful at, and like my career outside of online content, right? Like I have a lot of things to be grateful for, but it's so easy to get stuck in that trap when you're making YouTube videos.
And I would not blame you. Yeah, I wouldn't blame you or anybody for it. Like I know that like for some people that what I'm saying might come across a little bit like, I don't know, a little bit like, I don't know, like, oh, well, it's easy for you to say. And it's like, yeah, I get that. I do get that. But then, because I do understand how it feels to be, you know, grinding along at that mill, at like, especially when you've invested everything into it and you put your time and your life and whatever. And it's like, this is how I make my money. And, you know, you might have a family or whatever. Like, I get the pressure. I do. I really, really do. But it's about finding a healthy balance, because ultimately you only live once, and what's worth it more to you, chasing something and fighting against a system that hates your fucking guts, or maybe just taking the L and, you know, being okay with it? Some people can keep walking up, you know, keep running up that hill. Some people can do that, and I was lucky enough where I was that person that could do that. But the people that struggle really hard, and the people that end up, you know, just depressingly rant about it for hours on Twitter, is like, you shouldn't be doing this. This isn't good for you, because you know, it's like, it does suck. It's not a very nice, especially if you were successful and then you're not. It's more, I would say it's more coming to terms with the end more than, you know, the fact that it's ending in the first place. With lots of people, I think it comes from a place of, oh no, it's kind of it now, isn't it? You know, but
yeah, for sure.
Yeah, it can be misconstrued as something different, but yeah. And again, that can link into the, again, I know we keep going back rather than forward with this conversation, but it's like, yeah, Dog's eating Dog 6. He thought he wanted to do this thing of yelling and screaming, but then the comments weren't quite what he was anticipating, or he was anticipating it, but just didn't realize he couldn't handle it, and then he changed it up. And some people, it's like, yeah, I want to fight against impossible odds, and I want to do this, and I want to buy a lottery ticket every hour of every day and hope that I win something. But some people can do that, and they're okay doing that, and they're content doing that. And then some people are just like, they can't handle that pressure, and that's fine. No judgment. Like, I get it. I really do. It gets to a point that's too hard for everybody, and then on top of letting go of that pressure, you then have to come to terms with it being the end and it being over, and it's a very sad thing to kind of deal with. But then, yeah, it's just that element of, okay, so then why were we doing it to begin with, and are we enjoying it now, even with money problems or whatever? And then at this point, should it be that I keep doing this and fighting that? Like, is it worth it for me to keep going up Kilimanjaro and then finding out that there is another 1,000-foot mound that I've got to get over? You know, is it for some people can take it. Some people like that. Some people like the grind. Some people, it keeps them motivated. It keeps them distracted from something else going on in their life, whatever, or it gets them a lot of money, and that in and of itself is a very good incentive. But I'm just gonna say right now, for me personally, no amount of money in the world could convince me to go back to how I used to do things, with making 3 videos a week, especially nowadays, now that I'm older and I'm way more involved with family stuff and all this. Like, the amount of shit I've missed because I was doing 3 fucking videos a week, you'd never believe. And you'd think, well, I must have been making decent money. I made money. I could keep food on the table, but I was not raking it in. And it's like holy fucking shit, man.
Yeah,
you know,
yeah, like the amount of, you know, I've talked to like a handful of creators who are like in that like 300,000-400,000 sub range, right? And we've had a couple of guests on here who've been in that position, and you hear that they're making the wage of someone with like a pretty modest job when you really do the math, and like they're just kind of getting by, you know, if it is a money thing.
And that's the thing. If it is something that you're okay with, then all the power to you. But I think I was for a very long time. But then again, it's hindsight, benefit of hindsight, looking back, regrets, blah, blah, blah. And it's just like, hey, yeah, I actually now realize I was miserable. I was stressed. I was losing hair. I missed out on so much shit with regards to family. There's so much I don't remember, so much I've blocked out because my life was sitting in front of a computer and editing on fucking Vegas. And it's like, I was doing it to pay the bills and look after everybody. But at the same time, it's like, I could have done that probably with another job and then had more free time.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's a very difficult balance. I don't envy anybody that struggles with those kinds of thoughts or feelings. It's a very tough place to be in.
Well, I mean, it's honestly very appreciated hearing your insight on that process, because like, I know you kind of said like, oh, you know, that's rich coming from me, but it's also it's an invaluable perspective from someone who's experienced it from all stages of doing this sort of content, right? That you've gone from being a small creator to being a large creator. You've seen the peaks and the valleys, and you can be quite objective about it and recognize that your happiness and your healthiness is more important than having to meet some sort of trend or appeal to the algorithm or whatever the ask is from the platform, right? So,
and that's the ultimate irony, is that even if I was doing that, and because I was at one point, I was trend chasing, and I was like, okay, I'm going to get a Caddicarus done on Sunday, but I'm going to go and see a new film that just came out so I can hit the algorithm with that. And I'll also make sure I get a brand new video game review out on the Wednesday. And so I can get 3 fucking things. 2 of them are trending. One of them is the classic thing everyone's subscribed for. Fucking great. Bing, bang, boom, all done. And then you start realizing that that's just mental, like in terms of workload and everything. And then you realize all the things I thought I had to do, all the trend chasing and all the things that people say, you got to make sure the videos are this kind of length, and you got to upload this much, and you got to do this and that. And it's like, I took it very to heart. And then I look back and it's like, if I followed the book and I followed everything that YouTube was suggesting that I was doing, then fucking how is it that I nearly had to quit YouTube forever and find another job in 2019 despite doing that? And now I can actually spend as much time as humanly possible with my partner, who is going through a sickness through the whole year, upload twice, and yet still make more money that year than probably 3 years plus worth combined of what I was doing when I was doing 3 videos a fucking week back in 2016. It's like, so I thought I was doing the right thing. No, I wasn't. So it's all individual, I guess, is the other thing to say. It's there isn't a one size fits all solution. It's all based on you as a person and what you make and what you want out of this and what you're okay with and how much of there are loads of people that I know that don't even consider the whole fucking like tax situation with this stuff. And it's like, oh yeah, I'm just gonna play video games and scream at face cam and make money. It's like, okay, yeah, great, cool. So your self-assessment bill just came through. Did you save 20%? Have you been throwing your expenses through? Have you got an accountant? Like, there's all these grown-up things that come with it as a self-employed person, and it's just, and there's so much that people just don't consider. And then it's like, oh, so now you're stuck in a situation and you now need to pay off some debts or whatever, and then you're like, well, I need to keep working and doing this in order to make enough money to pay this back. But then the more you keep doing it and the more you throw yourself at it, the worse it seems to get. And then it's just like, oh fuck, how am I ever going to pay this back? I'm going to get in trouble, and then I hate what I do and I wish I'd never done it. And yeah, it's a bad cycle to get into, when ultimately it should have been about, you know, oh, four people from Liverpool met up and were like, hey, should we make some music in this cavern? You know? Yeah. It should, it gets obviously too big for its boots, but it is important to remember why you did it. It is really important, because if you lose that, you lose everything.
That's so true. It's like, you know, before I shift gears, I will say, like, this might be our least endorsing being a YouTuber interview we've had, which is very funny.
But that's wrong. There's real though.
It's very real. It's
this ain't for everybody.
Yeah,
there's gonna be some lows. There's gonna be some ups.
I think most people would talk about this in the same if they were like a famous musician or something.
For sure.
I think it applies. It applies to any industry where you are in control of things. When you want to have more security, like nothing is 100% secure. Nothing is like you can. And this is the argument I used with my mum back in the day when she was like, well, why don't you put more time into your supermarket job and you might be able to rise up the ranks? What if YouTube, falls apart next week? What if it all stops? And my immediate response would be, well, what if the supermarket collapses? Because that also happens. Yeah. It might be less likely to happen because, it's a service that everybody fucking needs. And the chances are that, but the problem is that whether people need food or not, or they need to buy food or not, and they need to go to a supermarket, a couple of very rich and very powerful people run the whole fucking show. And if they don't want it anymore, or they can see an opportunity to sell it, or they can do anything to cut down on costs and then they get a bonus, whatever it might be, you're always at risk whatever you're doing. And it's a slightly risky way to think, but in a way it can be quite liberating. So then you can accept the situation that you are in as a person. And I suppose the way to look at it is you are trading more security for doing what you want to do rather than, like, oh, I don't want to do this, but the trade-off is more security, is the idea. Yeah. And yeah, it's just knowing where you stand with that. And people forget where they stand. I'll quickly, I know you want to shift gears. I'll quickly go over one little story. I, again, won't name names, but there was a time back in 2013, I want to say, we had a website, me and 5 other friends of mine who I'm still very good friends with them to this day. We had a rival to Normal Boots that ended up becoming
Abnormal Boots. Yeah, Abnormal Boots. I remember it.
Yeah. So
Strange Boots.
Abnormal Boots.
Yeah.
No.
And
it was Uggs.
It was Uggs. Yeah. So we had this website and we had a creator spotlight on the front page of the website, and every week we'd review other people's videos that they would send in, and then we'd be like, okay, for a whole week you get to be on the front page if we like what you've done. And people would submit through the forum section. And fun fact, I know this is going off a little bit. I could be completely wrong. Please forgive me if I am wrong. It's something that I've heard. Maybe he told me this when I met him in person. I could be completely wrong. Do not hold me to my word. I think Scott the Woz sent some of his first videos to Hidden Blocks forums, and we just never saw them, I think. Could be wrong. Don't quote me on that, because that will make me look like a complete dickhead.
This is on the record. This is on the record.
On the record.
Yeah. What's it we said? We're going to put allegedlys everywhere.
Allegedly.
Yeah. I could be remembering that wrong or heard it wrong, or just I could be completely wrong about that. But whatever. That was just a separate point. If that was true, that's quite interesting. But whatever the case, there was a guy that he uploaded some stuff and we all watched it and we were like, it's not very good. It's just not very good. And all of us, all 6 of us, just very gently tried to let this guy down. And just basically we're like, yeah, okay, we're not going to put you on the front page, but have you turn that off. Have you considered doing things in this way or that way? Like, we were giving feedback, I suppose. And he was like, okay, yeah, I'll take your word in. And then a couple of days later, a new version of the video comes out with the feedback implemented. None of it was implemented. It was the same video again. It was very rushed. It was very like, a couple of things were different, but nothing noticeable. And we just said it again, like, no, I'm not really sure about that. And then we find out a couple of days later that the other friends outside of Hidden Blocks, so some of the Normal Boots people, were like, hey, do you know this guy? Because he keeps on asking me to look at his stuff, and I keep saying to him that you should try this and that, and he doesn't fucking change anything. And we're like, oh yeah, we know that guy. We've been trying to let him down and blah blah blah. Right. It doesn't seem to be working. And he wasn't horrible. He wasn't stubborn or anything. I don't think I don't know. I really don't know. But whatever happened, one thing led to another, and then the forums very quickly went really awful, very awful. And I'm not pointing fingers, but I'm making a slight suggestion that that experience led to the forums becoming very toxic, because he, at some point, I'd seen messages exchanged from different people because we were all talking to each other, and it turned out that this guy was really fucking angry with us and was blaming us because they weren't getting bigger. They weren't. The audience wasn't getting bigger. The subscribers weren't getting bigger. And it was like, well, if they just put me on the front page, and if they actually supported me, then I would actually be doing all right. But they've got their little, their special club, and they got favoritism and blah blah blah, which was not the case. And then that bled into the forums, where then the hidden block forums ended up becoming the bash hidden block forums, where it was just, this guy's a piece of shit. This guy ignored this email one time. This guy said this wasn't good enough. This guy subscribed to me and liked all my videos and shared it with his audience, and yet I'm still not bigger, so they're not doing enough. It got so, and so the forums ended up being shut down, and then we kept Hidden Block going as a brand for a bit, and then it wasn't benefiting anyone, and we just kind of silently killed it in the back with a shotgun. We just fucking ended it. No fanfare, no nothing. It was like this. Yeah, I don't think this was a good idea. But yeah, that just goes to show some of the mentalities. It's very entitled, I guess. It's the whole assuming that you know how the system works and then being disappointed when it doesn't work like that. It's
when
like,
it doesn't work in your favor.
Yeah. It's like, how could you even be in a even if you thought you were God's gift to Earth? Like, how could you be in a mental position where you're like, I've made a video, they all said it was great and they loved it. They subscribed to me, they liked the videos, they commented, they shared it with their audience, they put it on Twitter, they put it on their Facebook pages. I'm on the front page and I'm not getting bigger. That's still their fault. Yeah. What kind of mentality, how does that foster?
That's
it's interesting.
Origin story right there.
Yeah.
And man went home, tore down this Caddicarus poster. He said, "Yeet."
Well, full syndrome. He was syndrome.
That's what I said.
Yeah, he did.
Syndrome. Yeah, he just said.
Yeah,
guys didn't help me get bigger than I was, despite sharing me with everybody they know. Maybe you didn't have it.
You just
it's like that.
It just wasn't good.
It's entertainment.
It is what it is.
Do you know what's funny?
That way.
There was a just before we went on this. This is so weird. I was on the toilet and I was going through Instagram Reels, and I came across this random fucking thing, and it was someone had just stopped Willem Dafoe walking down the street and just gave him a very quick interview. And I don't think this guy knew who Willem Dafoe was. So it was just 5 questions very quickly. And he was asking what he did for a living and all this shit. And he was like, oh yeah, I'm an actor and blah, blah, blah. And it got to a point where he asked him, do you have any advice for anyone that wants to get into your industry? And he said, I don't give advice. Just do what you want and try to have fun with it. And hopefully it will all work out. It's like, yeah. And it's like, okay, it's so easy to be fucking Willem Dafoe, like one of the most recognizable and important character actors of all time. And it's like, it's very easy for him to say that from like that kind of position. But at the same time, it's like, is it though? Because from when you look at people like him and there's that level of genuineness and authenticity, it's like, I don't doubt for a second he got into acting because he wanted to fucking act, not because he wanted to make $1 million.
He just did.
But then if someone like, Dwayne Johnson fucking comes up and is like, oh, I've got no advice for any upcoming actors, I would say that more as a kind of, maybe he went into this for the business. And I'm not saying that that's him. I'm not saying that's him. I'm
but
just
it
using
is, though.
Well, maybe. I don't know. But yeah, it's just another example.
Zuki is saying that it's him.
That's Zuki's opinion.
There you go. But yeah, it's how you conduct yourself and how you come across. Yeah. There is an element of that to it. It's very easy to say the grass is always greener. It's very easy to be at the top of the world and say, well, you know what? I just ended up here. Like it's very easy. But like sometimes with this kind of shit, like it can't happen to everybody, and it just does sometimes, and it does because those people wanted to do these things so much that it was like, I don't care if I'm homeless, I want to act, and if they act enough, then at some point the right opportunity will come along. It's just a matter of time at that point, depending on how hard you work. But does the idea of working as an actor every single minute of your life and not getting anywhere until one period when you're 43, does that sound appealing? Because if you love acting, it should just be about the acting, and then if it works out, then you can say you then do great, you know. But it's an interesting discussion to have.
For sure.
Yeah.
Now, I did want to walk back something you had mentioned, particularly about your fiance, right? That she recently had a was it cancer? I just want to make sure that okay.
Yes, it was. I'm sure she won't mind me mentioning it because she's been public about it, and so have I. It was it was called triple negative breast cancer. Yeah, which is a very, very special, nasty kind. Very, very particular. Yeah.
So just off of that, you know, firstly, I commend your partner for bravery throughout that struggle, and obviously to you and your family.
So do I.
You know, and the one thing that I noticed was you were very open about it, and you were quite diligent with updates, and I thought that was really cool that you were able to be that vulnerable and that available to your audience and say, this is what's happening. She's making great progress here, and so on and so forth. You know, what was it like to be able to navigate such a difficult situation and to have that, to be able to have that resolve and to also have to attend to your audience that way?
Yeah, I mean, okay. Well, just to make things clear as well, we did get a really nice resolution in December leading up to Christmas. But then obviously there's, you know, waiting times between that and then next surgery, because the mastectomy was a single, so like there's a period of time next to that. The journey's not over yet. There's still a few things going on, but we are in a 10 million times better position. Like it's all good news, so don't freak out or anything. But yeah, so yeah, it's not completely resolved, but it's basically we're so much better off. But well, first of all, thank you as well for being very gentle and kind with what you're saying and everything. Really appreciate it. But I guess the asshole answer is, how do you think it felt?
No, that's real.
You know,
we got you.
But
that's actually a valid answer.
I just throw the cue card away. All right.
Yeah. Oh man. In all seriousness, though, I think focusing on just I guess I'm going to focus on the audience aspect, because when it comes to the personal aspect, I really, you can imagine, you just can. Like, it is what it is, and it's like it's not a case of anybody is worse than the other person. Everyone has their own shit to deal with. It's not a competition, but you know, it's what you can absolutely imagine. But when you're balancing that on what do I do with what I do for a living and everything, I mean, everything changes to a degree because you've got less time to work with. You need to be on call more or less all the time, which is, when I say have to, it's willing. I'm realizing my words might be misconstrued. I completely willing. I'm just talking from a general sense. But yeah, it's stuff you don't realize. Like you will be on call all the time, and you'll be going back and forth to the hospital more times than you could ever have imagined. And you've got to, you know, make sure that the kids are okay, and you've got to somehow keep money coming in, even though you're kind of unable to do that in many instances, or you're much slower than usual. Being open about it and letting the audience know about it, there's a very fine line between sympathy baiting, looking at a certain person whose name begins with B and ends with 9. No, it ends with 8. Sorry, it doesn't end with 9. It ends with 8.
Man, I was afraid you were going to say ends with Z. I was like, oh shit, he got me. What I say?
Hell, you got his ass.
What I say?
There's a certain person. The first part of the username is it's what I would describe as a jive. You know, a little bit of a dance followed by a sequence of 4 numbers.
Oh yeah, certain fella. Yeah, I figured. I just wanted to make a stupid joke.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
I don't know who y'all talking about. So this is actually working.
Oh, okay. If I said, I don't know, if I said fake cancer story, would you know who I was talking about?
Oh,
Magic the Gathering, bed enthusiast.
Yeah. Gap tooth, glasses.
Yeah. So,
okay.
do you know what's really funny is that whole shit was unfolding in the height of what we were dealing with, and we were just like, we were keeping up to date every step of the way because of how unbelievable it was. It was actually kind of escapism. It was like, it was so fucking shocking. It's one thing to not be currently in that situation, but then another to be like, we are living this, and it's like then you start noticing the things that were said and the way they were said, and it's like, this is bad. This is really bad, because if this was genuine, none of this would have been happening the way it was happening, and it was just amazing. But anyway, there's a very fine line between like I said, the sympathy baiting and all that shit, and honestly just informing, and that's seriously the only direction I was trying to take with it. If it was taken another way, I can only apologize. I know some people get more emotionally invested than others. I know there's some element of parasocialness to some people, and you've got to take that into consideration. But honestly, the updates are needed because ultimately I am stupid, funny British man on the internet that takes his shirt off and jumps out of a skip. That's who I am to a lot of people. And so I need to respect that when I'm keeping people up to date. Like, I don't keep people up to date with every going on in my life all the time.
Of course, yeah.
But when it's something this massive, and it's like, if you kind of have to, because then it's like, well, hey, things are going to be slowing down now, and I hope you can understand why. And also, Caris, bless her, she's a side voice. She's in the background whenever I have been able to stream. I didn't do any of that last year, obvious reasons, but whenever we have streamed, she is a voice in the background. So she does have her own little community of fans, I suppose, that really care about her and want to know what she's going through. So it's mostly just letting people know, hey, this is what's happening. If you're a little bit worried about where I am or where videos are, or like, this is the reason why. And so then if I post on social media or whatever, and it's completely unrelated to what we were going through, and someone decides to jump in and is like, so you haven't uploaded in like 5 months, where the fuck are you? Then I don't have to say anything. I can let the audience take care of it, because it's like, I've done my bit. It's not about making people feel bad, because I can't expect everybody to know, and that's fine. But maybe a little bit of a lesson in terms of how you conduct yourself on social media when you don't know people's full stories of why they might be going through something, then that might be a valuable lesson to people, because everyone on the internet mostly is just a person, but creative people, I suppose. It's like, it's very easy to be like, well, where's the thing? But
where's my dopamine hit at, man?
Yeah, exactly. And I can't blame people for being like that, because like I just said, I am just some weirdo British guy to a lot of people, and I can't expect them to know or find out or see the news or even care, honestly, which is a sad thing to say, but like, I can't. Like, people go through this kind of shit every single day, there's not a competition. No one is more special than the other. But it was honestly just a case of information. So when you're talking about how open and letting people know about it, it was more just to be like, it was statements, as if to say like, this is what's happening. Honestly, it was like, there's not really much else to say it. And I wanted to avoid in every single way possible of making it appear as though it was a sympathy bait, or it was a case of anything else other than that, or like I don't even remember if I told people like, if you want to help me, you can do that. Like, I that makes me feel sick.
Yeah.
Like, it's like, no, this is,
because it's like, it's like, I feel bad, but if you want to do this, it's like, okay, so now it's like, are you legitimately asking for help, or are you doing this because people are gonna go, oh, this is sad?
Right.
I got you.
Yeah, it's like it's very easy in someone in my position to be it's very easy to be manipulative,
Like misuse
super
your
fucking easy.
position. Yeah.
Yeah, and it doesn't take any effort. It takes no effort at all. There are loads of people, I'm sure, that you can all put in your heads that are just, they're famous for it. They might even be lolcows for it, you could say. That they are not even master. Like, people like to call some of these people master manipulators. I don't even see it as that, because master manipulators are ones that don't get noticed until it's too late. Like, these are people that are just openly manipulative or narcissistic or whatever, and they just don't give a shit about the people. It's like, I don't know. If I don't care about someone watching my videos, why would I expect them to care about me? You know, I'm no better. I'm just a dude that just so happens to have an audience, and I'm just letting people know that videos are going to slow down, and I'm sure everyone can imagine that this is happening and that's happening and blah, 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 blah. And yeah, it was really... what was difficult, I guess, was trying to get the balance between it sounding too matter of fact and too clinical versus unemotional. You know, like it's a very
finding the right language.
So I find a balance
for sure.
Yeah, because if you're too emotional or too like that, then it can look a little bit like, oh, you're milking this.
It can lean in that direction, yeah.
But yeah, it can look like that, even if it's not true. Or you can be so blunt about it where it's almost just like, oh, okay, so do you not give a shit about your own family then? Like, or like, oh, don't worry, guys, I'm going to make videos regardless. Like, so you might think it's looking very noble of you to your audience, but actually what it looks like is that you just don't give a shit. Like, that's just, you know, it's a very tricky thing.
It's a hard balance in with everyone being jaded and cynical because how many people burnt them online. It's hard to go, is this guy really going through this, or is he doing this for sympathy? Because now with the internet,
and the thing is like, and if someone was to think that, obviously it would hurt a little bit, and it wouldn't be a very nice thing. But ultimately, it's like, well, that's what you think, you know. It's the dude. Is it like, well, that's just like your opinion, man. Like, there's nothing much else you can say.
You can't stop them from believing what they believe.
No, of course not. People that don't like you don't like you. They'll find reasons to not like you. So
you can try.
Yeah, I know. So it's like you can try and, you know, convince people that you're not what they think you are. But the thing is, they think that you're like that. You can't change their mind by just a tweet or something. So all you can do is inform and then leave it at that. And then if someone asks a question or you want to go into a bit more detail, then depending on what it is, then we absolutely can. But it was mostly just a case of letting people know so that we could focus on what was most important. And again, that's another scary thing to think as well, is that, again, I know easy for me to say in my position, but I'm lucky enough where if people were ever going to like donate money through my stream or something and be like, oh, this is for what you guys went through last year, I would feel like I would not be rude enough to, you know, be like, whatever, but I would offer the chance for them to take it back, because I don't want to give people the impression that like we're struggling in that sense. Like people struggle in every single way, but like in terms of that situation, there are people that have nothing and also are dealing with this, and you know, so it's difficult because you need to be respectful of what people think about the situation.
For sure, especially when like the intent is good there, right? That's very difficult when like someone thinks that that's the right thing to do when they wouldn't understand your perspective, which, you know, is quite respectful, that you would go, I don't feel comfortable with that being the reason why you donated.
I mean, I guess it would be depending on how I would react. So if somebody was to give it, and instead of me being like, okay, that is super, super, super kind of you, thank you so much, I don't expect any of you, there is no obligation, there's no nothing, I really appreciate it. If it was a mistake or you added another zero that you weren't supposed to add, please let me know, I'll contact you, we'll refund you. There's that approach. Or there is, oh, thank you so much, man, that really means a lot. You know what, you are right, we have been struggling. You know, I figured that saying that kind of does go without saying, but then when money gets involved and you start saying it, it's like, well, yeah, it goes without saying. When someone has given you the money, why are you saying that now?
Right.
Like,
right.
you know, I mean, but then for some people, it might just be a slip of the tongue. You can't ever judge.
Yeah, it's tricky.
Patterns of behavior, I suppose. But
well,
you're like, what the? You know.
No, I was gonna just say, ultimately, just to kind of circle back, is, again, it's great to hear about the progress and that Karis is in that position where recovery's possible, and it is, as you said, 10 million times better than it's been.
Yeah,
so
10 million times better.
We're just happy for you and the family that you've built there.
No, well, I really, really appreciate it, guys. Thank you. I think as well, it's important to note that the other element which we're all focusing on right now as we went into 2025 was journey's not quite over yet, but we're better off where we were last year based on just like, we got the diagnosis, and I mean, Jesus Christ, cried like a fucking baby. That was the worst day of my life. It was awful, terrible, worst day of all of our lives in this family. But yeah, so that happened, and then, but along with just the shock of it comes the whole, is everything going to be okay? Will this work? If this doesn't work, what can we try then? And blah, 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 blah. There's a million things to consider. And then when you have a year that we've had, and then we have the results that we've had, it's then, okay, so we now know what works. And we know now what the body responds to, and we know a lot more than we did going into it when it was shock and terror and everything else. Plus, we didn't know if anything was going to fucking work, or if, it was like the unknown was just as scary as everything else. But now the unknown isn't really a problem. It's just now we just got to figure out what the next step is, I suppose. Yeah.
Well said. Well said, and again, thank you so much for sharing that.
So, and with us.
No, it's life. Like, it happens, right? Like, I mean, I think I heard them. They've just come back from a drive, so I think she can hear me as I say this. So when I say that we're not special in that sense, that's not me saying that to her personally. I promise, honey, if you can hear me. It's not. Yeah, it's more just the concept and the idea, and it's this. I guess it would be the exact same thing, I suppose, if like, going back to the beginning of this conversation again, it would be like talking about autism and stuff. It would be like, there'd be somebody that just so happens to have autism that is doing well for themselves and is just going through life, and every so often they'll update people about what's going on with their autism or whatever, right? Whatever. And then there's a difference between that and then a reality TV star Kardashian type of person who happens to have an autistic child and will never shut the fuck up about how autistic their child is, and will post about it and will farm engagement for it and farm for, even if there's no direct like, oh, I'm looking for sympathy with it, just the idea of using that as a kind of, well, we're special, more important than you. People care about us, It's a disgusting thought. So yeah, it's a completely different situation, but yeah, in a weird way, the principle kind of stands.
So, to shift gears here, Caddy, we got to talk. Yeah. We got to talk about something pretty serious. You got to fill us in about Spawns, and I put him on the set so our audience can see him. He's here now.
What a fucking tonal shift.
I don't know.
Are you gonna tell? Are you about to tell me that we found a lump in Spawns? Is that what you're about to tell me?
I'm weak.
I thought making it as abrupt as possible was the angle, and I'm glad I did. So
that was great. That was great.
I knew you'd appreciate it.
Yes, that was good. That was good. Don't worry. It's all good. It's all good.
All right. I want to make sure that my poor taste joke was funny.
No, it's fine. You're all good. You're all good. You're all good.
So,
what's the context of that joke?
Okay, so Spawns is a recurring character in Caddy's videos. You want to tell Zuki about Spawns a bit?
Yeah, Spawns is me. With my okay. take a cereal box, cut out the cereal box, paint it red. And the shape of the cutout is a kite.
Yeah.
And you've painted the kite red. You cut a big hole in it for your head, 2 other little holes for your fingers to fit through, and then you super glue 2 doll shoes, baby toddler doll shoes, to the bottom of the kite. So that's his little feet. And he announces and explains my sponsorships, and his name is Spons.
Yep.
Okay, that's what that is. Okay.
Is a well-loved creature.
He's a well-loved creature that only exists to sell product. That's all he does. He doesn't do anything else. He exists to sell people sponsorships and merchandise, and yet he has become a surprise hit. And I wasn't anticipating that, but I'm very glad it went that way.
I always wondered, like, you know, in how he became a part of your videos, and like, you know, obviously you have like many characters that pop up in your videos. Like,
you could say that. Yeah.
I mean, they're usually you.
One-off gags.
Yeah,
like, they're all me. They're all me. All of them are. Yeah.
It's like I know for a fact, like your fans probably have a bestiary of all of the one-off people and things you've played. like they're Pokemon.
I really loved the whole, like, again, it's almost a kind of it's an homage and also a takedown of myself. So I'm enjoying the ideas of the old reviewers of yore, where they would have ongoing storylines and multiple characters all played by themselves in cheap Halloween costumes and shit, which some people still do now. And so there's that element of it where it's just like, I just find that idea a little bit terrible and really funny. And then the other element of I never really 100% committed to the bit when I was younger, but I did feel myself going down that route where I was creating stories and characters and branches that you would have to watch other videos in order to, and it was subtle, but it was going that way. And I was just like, why the fuck did I do that? And so yeah, like so whenever I have other quote unquote characters pop in, it's just me talking normally with my normal voice, and they just all have different names, and they appear for the sake of one joke, and they never come back again. And that's that. I think that's if you're gonna do it, that's how you should do it. But yeah, Spons is a rare exception where he exists just.
He's a fan favorite. Yeah, he's a fan favorite for sure.
He's a fan favorite, and it's just so bizarre considering, but maybe that just goes to show, again, we were talking about authenticity earlier. Like, the whole idea about Spons was, I'm reading a sponsorship now, I want to be separate from me, and so what would I call this thing? Oh yes, the first 5 letters of what I'm doing. Yeah,
that's funny.
So yeah, you can't hide behind it. I'm like, the idea, if someone is upset with Spons, it's like, but he's like, why are you upset about the sponsorship kite called Spons doing a sponsor? It's a checkmate. Yeah. You know, you can be upset with it, but ultimately
it reflects on you.
Would you? Yeah, it sounds like a you. It's a skill issue. Honestly, it's like. It's like, would you rather that you just had me as myself reading the ad, or would you rather know that I am fully fucking aware that I am giving you a sponsorship you probably don't care about, and I'm going to just try and do what I can with it to make it work? So
you make it entertaining, right? Like that's what I always liked about those reads, is like they blend well in the video, where like, you know,
oh god, one of my favorite bits of like writing any of my newer videos, if there is a sponsor lined up, it's how can I do the worst possible transition from what I'm talking about in the video to all of a sudden this kite is there. And the one I did most recently in my Crash Bash video was a favorite of mine, because I was like, that was so last minute, but it ended up working, I thought, quite funny, where it's like, okay, so I'm just going to throw in this random gag that I filmed at the very end of everything else. So the whole footage doesn't even fit, like, color grading wise or anything with the rest of the video, but I don't think people noticed. And it's like, okay, how am I going to introduce Spons in this Crash Bash video? Okay, I'm going to talk about how Koala Kong looks while he's in the ballistics machine. And then I'm going to say his like, oh, those polygons or his hands or something, his ears, something about him, they're very angular. It almost looks like a kite. And then I'm just going to move closer to the TV and zoom in closer and closer to this one part of his body I'm focusing on. And then eventually it's like, oh, every time I zoom in, it's like, is that actually a kite or is it just part of the game's polygons? And then it's the kite. And then it's like, yes, I've got a transition. Fuck yeah. And then that's it, the end. Yeah.
I mean, I really, and we'll get a little into Crash Bandicoot as well in general, but I really did like that gag, especially with like Spons like being so reluctant about the sponsor you had lined up and wanting a much bigger, more important sponsor instead.
Oh yeah, North Face.
Yeah, the North Face.
I wanted North Face. Yeah. The War Thunder.
Yeah.
They're not as cool as North Face. I don't want to do that.
Man,
It's so weird, right? Because I get there's an element of wanting to keep people happy and keep people safe. I get that. I do. And it's like when there's a lot of money on the table, I really do understand that. I wouldn't begrudge anybody doing a sponsor read in any way they wanted to. But I don't know. For me, it's like I can't imagine doing them in any other way to a point where me and my agent are now in a position of power where sponsor is contractually an obligation.
Right.
So if somebody wants to work with me, they have to be okay with the sponsorship kite reading it.
That is hilarious.
And they have to be okay with me being a shit piece of shit, and they have to be okay with me being self-aware that I'm being paid to sell someone something. They have to be okay with this.
That's the worst when they want you to act like it's organic. Oh man, I just love eating.
Yeah, I mean,
magic spoon cereal that you see nobody eat.
Yeah, exactly, right? So there are a couple of things where there is a genuine excitement behind it, and I make that clear. But for most of it, it's like what I've always tried to argue, and I've been in group calls with people when my agent can't explain it as well as I can. There's been moments where I've tried to basically say to people that are very skeptical, like, okay, here's the situation, right? I'm going to use my Fall Guys sponsorship as an example for this. So this was about 3 years ago or 2 years ago, but Fall Guys was massive, and they were offering a very nice sum of cash to do an ad read in a video, because they wanted it. Basically went from, hey, dedicated video for this much money to, okay, actually, 2-minute ad read in the middle of another video and also way more money. So it started, the negotiations went well, but they were very skeptical about something I wanted to do. And what it was when Fall Guys first came out, I was vocally disgusted by it. And I was on Twitter bitching about it and talking about how I didn't see what the big deal was and I didn't get it. And I was just like, why is this going off as much as it is, and why is this such a big deal, and blah blah blah. So there is evidence of me not liking the product that you are trying to get me to sell. And we can approach this in one or two ways, right? We can approach this as, I ignore it and talk about everything that you want me to talk about, and then you're just going to get a fuckload of people messaging you about how you've been scammed and I actually didn't like it, and here's the proof, it was on Twitter, and blah blah blah, and oh, now that just proves he's a sellout because he doesn't like the thing and he's been forced to say that he does, and it doesn't work for you, it doesn't work for me, nobody would take me seriously with that, and everybody would think that you're just a soulless corporate entity that doesn't give a shit about where they give their money to, so long as they're getting an audience for it. So we can go that way, or you can have me read some of the things that you want me to say while screenshots of all the shit I said about your game appear around me. And they fucking went with it. It's in the ad. You can see it. It's there. And it's like, it went so much better than I think they thought it was going to in terms of click rate and stuff, because it immediately was like, okay, sponsors here. There's the kite. What's the spot? Oh, this video's been sponsored by. Okay, it's Fall Guys. That's weird. All right, okay. So now I'm being advertised Fall Guys. I know I'm going to be told to go to the description. I've probably already heard of Fall Guys. I've probably already played Fall Guys. Or if I've heard of it, I'm not interested in playing it, and feel like I'm forced to play it, and I just don't like how it looks, and I don't like how they're memeing on Twitter and shit posting all the time, and I'm not okay with it. But now I'm an audience member. I can at least see they have a fucking sense of humor, and they realize how absurd it is. And they've hired somebody to talk about their thing who was originally negative about it. And everybody knows that I'm being paid anyway. So what am I missing out on?
It implies that they can laugh at themselves a bit. It implies that they're able to like go, oh, okay, haha, jokes on us, right?
Yeah. And you know, it doesn't work all the time with lots of people, but like it works enough where it's like I guess my argument is you're hiring me for me. You could hire anybody else that's way bigger than me to do exactly what you want to do, but you are hiring me for me. I know what my audience respond to. I know what I'm comfortable doing. I know how I personally feel about reading ads and shit. So why don't we just make this all work for each other? Because if I don't do it this way, it won't be beneficial for you, and you would have wasted your money. You would have wasted the investment. And it's trying to convince some people that this is actually, it's not, oh, bad publicity is good publicity. It's not bad publicity. It's just having fun. And there's loads of sponsors that are okay to do it, but then lots of ones that aren't. And there are some that we have rejected because they just won't take the ideas. And it has got really tense on a couple of times. And I have been like, you know what, fuck it. There was sometimes it can turn into a game of chicken where it's almost like, if you don't allow me to say that I was so addicted to this that I was still playing it over cloud gaming while I was shitting out something. If you don't allow me to say something like that, then I'm dropping it. And like, that's not a card I would play all the time, because it can come across, and I am aware it can come across quite like elitist, I suppose, for lack of a better word, because it's like, why would you risk losing that? But it's more about, I guess, this is what I'm okay with. This is, my integrity, I suppose, is the word I have to use, because it's as you know, as pretentious and pompous as that sounds. It's like, I would rather not bend to every single whim and know that it will just ruin how people look at me and look at the product, rather than it be just like, I would rather do it my way. I'd rather not have to stress,
you don't want to have to concede like who you are, the brand you've built, the audience you've grown for a brand deal.
It's very it's very easy. Like, there's lots and lots of people out there that criticize Hollywood actors and all sorts of other people for, like, selling out, and they're like, oh, well, this person clearly just can't say no to any kind of money, right? And it's like, yeah, trust me, I'm aware of how fortunate and lucky I am to even be in a position to consider saying, like, maybe not. I don't want to, but I am fortunate enough where I have a little bit of wiggle room. I have a little bit of control, and I will like to exercise that if and when I can. And 95% of the time, it's ended up working out really well. So I will continue to try doing that. But yeah, it's very easy to, not be in that position and be like, haha, look, he did that because he'll do anything for money, or, oh, well, of course he said no to that because he's already got money, and how could you say no to that? What, just because you couldn't swallow your pride or swallow your tongue and say this about?
I think a lot of
it's easy. Yeah, a lot of people would, and I would not blame them for it. But
they probably
again,
see it as
you wouldn't know. Yeah.
Oh, sorry, I don't mean to keep cutting in.
No, it's okay. I was just going to say that I guess you wouldn't know unless you were in that position to begin with, I suppose. It depends on how much you're willing to put yourself on the line, how much you're willing to quote unquote sell your soul. Like, what is your minimum budget for that? No one could know unless you were actually actively doing it. It's easy to judge, I suppose, but yeah, that's another discussion. But yeah, sorry, what were you going to say?
Oh, well, I was just kind of, well, you actually kind of said what I was going to pipe in there, but like, when it comes to some of the things that you cover too, like especially like Crash Bandicoot. Obviously, you've gotten this reputation where you cover a lot of Crash Bandicoot stuff. You've sort of built this part of your content where you're like the Crash Bandicoot guy. So how did that really start for you, or like how did you grow that over time?
I wish I could say that there was a method.
Was it just like coincidence that it stuck?
I mean, the whole idea, I guess, came about from the idea that, like, whether or not I'm focusing more on the humor or just trying to be entertaining, that what my main goal with every video I make is that you don't have to know a fucking thing about what I'm talking about. If you can just watch it and enjoy it and find it funny, regardless of whatever I'm talking about, I consider that I've done my job properly. If I go so in depth where it's almost like, well, even in some of my older videos where it's like, if you don't know what I'm referencing in terms of other games, or if I'm comparing mechanics to other things that you wouldn't know about unless you've done it yourself, then that's not what it works for a lot of people. It's not my jam personally. It's not something that I strive to do nowadays anyway. I just want to make people laugh. So that's the focus. But with me being, you know, within a video game community-ish kind of thing, whatever you want to call it, being recognized as that kind of person, being known for doing PlayStation 1 stuff, blah blah blah. If I'm in that position already and I know that I can get a wealth of ideas out of this one particular franchise, not even because I'm obsessed with it, but because I just know more about it than I probably should, then, and it just so happens that most Crash stuff gets announced or comes out in June, which is my birthday month, and also Crash 3 was the first video game I ever played. It's like it all just kind of made sense, and I've always, like, there's old pictures of me as a kid wearing Crash merch and stuff. I've always followed Crash. Like, it's been the only constant in my life, you know, through thick and thin, through family fallouts, through everything else. He's there, and that's a good or a bad thing, whatever you want to make out. But yeah, it's one of those. It's just one of those things. Like, I have a lot to work with.
I'm glad that Cash Banooca has been this supportive. Yeah, can you hit the whoa again, Zuki? Whoa! Yeah, that's pretty good.
Yeah,
there we go. Yeah. So I mean, you did carve out that like PlayStation niche. Like, when it comes to video games that you grew up with or that are like formative for you, like what are some games that you really love?
Oh god, what, just PlayStation?
Or generally, but like that was, I always thought that was pretty cool that you kind of focused on PlayStation. So I figured a lot of them would be PlayStation classics.
Yeah, I suppose, but like, yeah, even that's I think what's always drawn me to PlayStation specifically, even today, even if it's not quite as prevalent as it was back in the day, was they like, you're never gonna find a game like LSD Dream Emulator on Nintendo 64. You're never gonna find Parappa the Rapper on Xbox. You know, I mean, you will. I'm just saying that back in the day, it was like there was a console where you could get fucking Final Fantasy 9 and Silent Hill, and then like No One Can Stop Mr. Domino, and it's just like this is just insane shit. Some of it, or Cooler World, which is just a puzzle game about a beach ball that lives in the sky, and you're just going around these abstract fucking like 3D constructs that are all rotating, and you just got to pick up fruit and get from stage to stage. Like, there's shit that PlayStation were not, they just did whatever, which I really admire. I admire that, and they kind of have kept that going a little bit even into today with the way they work with the DualSense controller and how that works with certain games. And it's just, I mean, fucking, didn't Death Stranding come out on PS4 first?
Yeah, it did.
Right?
Yeah.
Like, not my thing. Maybe if I gave it another go, I'd maybe like it more. I don't know. But you explain Death Stranding to someone, and then it's like, who else would invest in that? Yeah, Sony. Like, no, Microsoft would never have fucking greenlit Death Stranding. No one else would have done it. but you know, they're just crazy enough to try. And you know, that mixed with the exclusives and everything, yeah, it's always just, it's just so unique. There's nothing quite like it. But yeah, I don't even. When it comes to other things, though, like my favorite video game of all time is Bloodborne. Hasn't been topped yet.
Great game.
And yeah, I mean, you know, you could say that there is a cultural bias there because, you know, I mean, it's not too far off of London. It's pretty close. I relate.
London, like right now.
I mean, yeah, it pretty much is. I mean, they all sound like it and look like that. And there's
got too much insight.
And...
That's the problem.
Away, you beast! You start swinging the torch.
Yes, and I've met many a Mikolash in my time that you know, they just, you know, they put something on their head, call you majestic, and then run away. Like it's you run into loads of people like that in Oxford especially. But yeah, that's just everything, even if there's like what, you know, you objective flaws or whatever you want to say, just every single element of Bloodborne just fucking hits for me. Not a single thing I would change about it. Even if I wouldn't mind things being changed, I'm just like, I'm happy with the way it is, with warts and all, you know. I'm just okay with that. Other video games though, fucking I couldn't even begin. It's man, what have I always followed? Oddworld, I've always followed from day one. Love Oddworld games. Again, that's another example. Like, you've got fucking the Oddworld games on PS1. I didn't see, I mean, yeah, maybe Flashback was on Super Nintendo, but taking that kind of a risk where it's like, it's not just man with gun, it's weird alien slave creature working in a meat factory that has, you know, Aboriginal themes and stuff. It's just it's mental shit. But yeah, so there's Oddworld. I've always followed Metal Gear Solid. I've always followed, I guess for me it's franchises more than individual games. Silent Hill I've always followed. Resident Evil, massive on Resident Evil. Oh god, I'm just trying to pull things. Yeah, Dark Souls, going on with Bloodborne. I'm always following what From Software are up to. Speaking of as well, along with Bloodborne, another one of my favorite games of all time is Sekiro. Fucking masterpiece.
Oh, great game. Yeah.
Tekken. I've followed Tekken from day one. Never been a Street Fighter guy. Always been a Tekken guy.
Tragic.
Well, yeah, you're from the later Tekken though.
I follow the later ones. Yeah, I haven't played the 8 yet though, which is really sad.
Because I know like it's a big Tekken scene in the UK versus Street Fighter really over there. It's like Tekken.
Yeah, and that might be related to Tekken and especially that. I think there might be an element of again, PlayStation. It was massive in the UK. PlayStation 1 was huge.
Yeah, Tekken 3 was huge on the PlayStation.
Tekken history.
Jeez, Tekken 3 is just like, that's people that I've spoken to that like other parents of other kids at the schools that our kids have gone to, who are in their like now maybe in their 40s. They're even when I tell them what I do for a living, I'm like, oh yeah, I grew up with PlayStation 1, and they're like, oh, I remember having one of them. Even if they don't know anything about anything, they all fucking play Tekken 3. Everybody fucking.
It was like a household fixture for the PlayStation, no doubt. Everyone had Tekken 3.
Yeah, absolutely.
Tekken 3 was the go-to game on the PlayStation 3. At any fucking 3.
God, what else? Yeah, there's that. There's fucking, what am I always following? Rally games. Weirdly enough, that's something that probably people wouldn't expect. But yeah, rally games like car rallies. Colin McRae, all that shit.
Oh damn.
Which would now be WRC, I guess. But yeah, every new. All the WRC stuff that comes out, like those are games that I can properly zen into. Like once I'm in the zone with something like that, and you're just like teetering on the edge of a cliff face and trying to, you know, drift through the mud and not roll out of it and everything. Once you're in the zone with Rally and there's no music playing, it's just you and the environment and everything. Yeah, it's majestic. I was
happy to find out that like you're something of a Gran Turismo fan, are you not?
Yeah. Gran Turismo I'll still follow. Yeah. That's honestly when it comes to simulation, I guess, in that sense. Like if you get the right equipment and everything, it's just like it's as close to the real thing as it can be. But like,
you ever play? The sort of game series.
Oh yeah, Assetto Corsa, I think.
Assetto Corsa, yeah.
No, I never did. No.
That's the one-to-one simulation for real.
Oh, no way. Oh, I'm gonna have to look into that.
It's
Definitely.
on PC, right?
The
Yeah.
PC.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the one people got the PC cockpit set up for.
Ah, sick. Oh, that's great. Oh, maybe those are the ones I've played because I've been to events before where they put you in like a dome. The most recent one was Gran Turismo 7 though, where I was put in a dome and I had the PSVR on, and it was like a rotating dome. And it was a car seat, and it was like next level. It was like I'm actually driving a fucking like Ferrari F1 car. It's just fucking insane. It's just
Yeah, that's
that was
the next level of like the setup for is the cockpit for racing simulators.
I mean, I did ask how much that one that I was in was, and it was like 50k. I was like, oh, yeah,
I'll just buy a car.
Yeah. Yeah, I know, right? I can actually do it for real. I can do it. Oh my god. Jeez. You know, it's like when someone asks you like, "What's your favorite like film or album?" It's like, geez, I mean, where the fuck do you start?
Yeah, that's true. It's a loaded question I gave you. That's fair.
Yeah.
No, it's not a loaded question. It's just that there is just, and then I'll probably remember shit after this call where it's like, oh, I forgot to talk about that. Oh fuck. But yeah, there's all those ones I've mentioned are just, you know, good old. I can't really. I will follow them till the ends of the earth, probably. I'm just trying to think of any other random.
I got a
examples.
random question related to Tekken 3.
Sly Cooper, where the fuck did he go? Sly Cooper.
Bring him back. Oh, I'm sorry, Zuki. You were saying Zuki.
Sorry. What were you saying?
I said, who did you main in Tekken 3 back in the day? I main Paul.
My main in Tekken 3, I want to say Yoshimitsu, but I think it might have been maybe Hwoarang. Maybe it was Hwoarang. Because I mained Beck in Tekken 2, and Hwoarang is the closest next best thing. But the whole, you know, position and stance changing got a little bit annoying, so I think every so often I would dip in. But yeah, my sister's main was Dr. Boskonovich, and that was a pain in the fucking dick.
She just sliding on the ground.
Just kept falling over, rolling.
The most insufferable shit, because she knew it pissed me off, and it was like I'd be trying to have a match with her, and she would mostly win because you can't fucking hit the guy, and it's just like you get near him and he does poison breath, and then it will like cancel anything you're doing. If you jump over him and then go to land on him and he just does his breath, it just fucking knocks you back. It's like, so you just get grinded down. He doesn't have any massively powerful moves, but eventually you will just lose. It's just like, oh fuck's sake. Man. And then you know in the when you finish like a team battle or versus or arcade, it will show you the character usage.
Yeah.
So I hated it how, because she picked him all the fucking time, he was like 91% at the top all the time. And it sucked. It sucked.
Man. Just seeing a doctor smiling. I hate this guy.
Yeah, Dr. B, #1 used character.
Hell
It's
yeah.
like, not from me.
Dr. B.
Not from me, I promise you.
Well,
oh god.
Before we wrap up, do you have any kind of final words for? Yeah, you've kind of alluded to some of the pratfalls of YouTube, but like, what would you say are some good tips or some good advice for creators who are trying to find their voice or even just enjoy making videos on YouTube?
Don't.
Oh, okay. All right.
Okay. No. That's my go-to answer. At conventions, that's my go-to answer as well. Well, actually, I was going to just quickly say as well. Another thing to mention. Tomb Raider, I follow those games as well very closely. And also if anyone hasn't already, whether it be Steam. Oh god, there's Nintendo shit. Animal Crossing. I'm massive on Animal Crossing. Stardew Valley is one of my favorite games. Gee, there's so much shit, man. There's like games. Fucking hell. There's a load. But I was gonna say either get yourself a Switch or get yourself a Steam Deck, and you'd be so surprised at the amount of amazing indie games. There are so many fucking good ones. So many good ones. Most recent one I've been playing, I will shout it out right now, is a game called Anton Blast, which is essentially a modern Wario Land cross with Crash Bandicoot. Is the best way. And playing it. Oh, it's so good, and it's a bit of Pizza Tower in there as well. But yeah, again, it's about, do you want to play safe with AAA, or do you want to go with the indie people that actually fucking experiment and take risks? Because you end up finding shit you end up falling in love with. Another random indie game, just off the top of my head, was a game called Lil Gator Game.
Oh, I've heard about that one. Yeah, I have a friend who really likes it.
Yeah, dude, it's just the chillest fucking thing. It's just a game about a baby crocodile, or alligator rather, and he is trying to play with his older sister who is doing college work, but she's busy doing college work. So the whole game is just this open world. You can't die or anything, and you just got to run around and do kid shit and like do make believe stuff with all your other friends, and then you have to make a fortress to convince your older sister to come and play with you at the end of the game. And it's just so fucking wholesome and sweet and actually really fun to play. And it's just, yeah, you can, those are the kind of shit games you can get lost in.
Nice.
Yeah. But anyway, indie shit, that's another fucking discussion. That's another thing. But yeah, advice for YouTubers. So long as you are doing what you want to do, then you're. Do you know what? I'm going to put it another way. I'm going to put it because it's easy to say, if you're doing it because you like it, then you've already win. No, that's a little bit, it's a little bit patronizing. But I will say this: if I was to ask somebody, like, I don't know, just a random person, like, what one of your hobbies is, I suppose. So you go to someone and you're like, what's something you like to do in your spare time? If they say watching movies, going to the cinema, and you're like, okay, cool. So if I said to you that if every time you went to the cinema, every penny you spent on tickets and food and the hours that you've spent combined in the whole of your life going to the cinema to watch films or watching them at home and streaming and all that shit, if I told, or buying, fucking collecting DVDs, Blu-rays, whatever it may be, if I told you that interest, that hobby that you're into, if I said you could do that for the rest of your life, but you would never actually be given money for doing it, would you still do it? And most people that are into films will say yes. And then you move on. Okay, how about skateboarding then? If I said you the rest of your life you'll never make a penny skateboarding, but you love skate, like, would you still go to the skate park every weekend? And if they say yes to that, okay. Playing video games, think about how many hundreds of hours you'll put into World of Warcraft or something along those lines. Think about the time, the DLC, the microtransactions. If I said to you that with every generation of console that you've invested in, every game you've bought, all the hours, which is arguably more than films, but all the dozens of hours that you have spent playing video games, if I said to you that would be, you could do that for the rest of your life, but you wouldn't be given a penny doing it, would you still do it? And then if the answer is yes to all of them, it's like, okay then. So if I said to you that my hobby was making videos and editing, there you go. If you can answer making YouTube videos, being a YouTuber, quote unquote, if you can answer the question of, if I told you were never going to make a penny doing it, would you still do it because it's just something you like doing and never think twice about it, like picking up a controller and playing fucking Overwatch, then
yeah,
if you can say, yeah, I'd still do it, then yes. But you've made it already, because then if someone came to your door while you're playing Overwatch and said, hey, do you want $10,000 to play Overwatch today? You wouldn't say no, but you wouldn't be expecting it. And you would still play Overwatch regardless if the money was there or not, because you've been playing video games for 30 fucking years and you're still here. And if you can look back and think none of your time with a console or watching films and all that shit, if you can look back and go, I didn't waste my time doing that, then that's how you know you've got a passion, a love, a hobby. And that's how you know if you can feel the same way about creating music or anything, playing in a band, anything. If you can feel that about making videos on YouTube, then go for it. Fucking go for it, because it doesn't matter. You haven't wasted your time, have you? You're doing something you like. Some people like going to the cinema. Some people like editing videos. It's just, yeah. But if you're going into it intending to, if you're going to the skate park because you are hoping to become a pro skater just out of luck, or you are, watching films because you are going to want to move to LA and become a writer or a director, and that's the only reason you're doing it, then you've lost straight away. It's Dark Souls. Prepare to die. If you're prepared to die, you'll enjoy it. If you expect you're going to play Dark Souls for the first time ever and beat everything first go, you're going to fucking hate it. You know?
Yeah.
So that's how I would word it. Yeah.
Man, that's
was,
yeah, that's awesome.
That was real.
That's
I like that.
that's a really cool perspective.
Not to, you know, well, thank you. That's not to dismiss, you know, the struggles and YouTube fuckery and, you know, algorithms. It is not to dismiss any of that at all, but it is something that you need to be at peace with. If like I was in, like, you were talking about what I was trying to get into when I was like what my career was heading to, and I was going into anything media. I was happy with anything. But another thing I had at the same time was I was a session drummer for multiple different bands, but there was one band I was in particular who I essentially had to make a choice of, do I commit to YouTube before I'd made a penny on it, or do I go with these guys because they just booked like a recording studio somewhere and they were actually making their first proper professional LP. And we'd already done a load of gigs up to that point, and it was like, oh, this is like our first proper shot, and we're going to see where we can send it and blah, blah, blah. And I had an ultimatum. I was like, I either stick through and commit to the band or stick through and commit to YouTube. I chose YouTube. It worked out for me, luckily. But both decisions were just as difficult because I wasn't expecting to make any money playing music, and equally I wasn't expecting to make anything making videos. It was just, I love playing drums in bands and I love making videos, but if one of them was probably going to do better, it might have been the YouTube, and I chose correctly. But either way, like, I'm not gonna say I'm never gonna drum in my life ever again because I'm not making money doing it, you know.
Yeah.
I guess that's the way you got to look at it. That's the way you got to look at it.
Wow,
man.
Oh, sorry.
Was that a mic drop?
Yeah, I know. That's just kind of had to say with what you said. You shared a lot of wisdom there, honestly. Like,
yeah,
I've been at that juncture in my life before where, you know, especially as like a fellow musician, like I produce, and I've had moments where like I've been very close to breaking into my industry, which is hip hop. And
yeah,
I recognize that, you know, even when I get disappointing news or I've been burned or whatever it may be, I still love doing it, right? And it's still important to me, and it's something that I do as often as I can, and I want to keep learning and getting better at it and working with my friends. So like, that's exactly how you should approach YouTube. Is it should come from a place where you could make $0 and 0 cents and you'd still be fulfilled and happy to do it.
Yeah,
absolutely. There's, you know, something, this is going to sound super fucking strange, and it's going to sound, I'm going to, you know, fucking the allegedlys are going, no, this isn't allegedly, this is proven, but it's going to sound really weird. I'm going to make a very strange comparison. Bear with me. Jeffrey Epstein.
Oh, no.
Oh.
Okay, I'm taking it.
Oh
yeah!
Hold on, you can't just say that and just shoot the salvo. He said, "I'm going."
This is a fact. It's like right after I said something nice, you just go like, "Look, Jeffrey Epstein."
Anyway, so Jeffrey Epstein.
I promise this is going somewhere that makes sense.
R/Caddicarus is going to be crazy after this drops. God damn.
I'm sure. I'm sure. So. Obviously despicable human being for obvious reasons, but what I'm talking about is how, because I didn't know who the fuck this guy was, and all of a sudden he was in the news. I didn't know what he did. I didn't know fuck all about this guy, and finding out from just news stories and coverage of what was going on, from what I gather, he made his money knowing people, essentially.
Yep.
And he had a lot of dirt on a lot of big and powerful people, and I guess it was just a lot of favors and backs and forths. Maybe he was an investor. I don't know what the fuck I don't care. But from what I gather, that's how he got as prolific as he was, by just networking, essentially.
Yeah.
No, it didn't matter who it was. It was just fucking talking with people. So in that sense, when you go out and hang out with your friends and just, you know, go to their houses, just catch up, have some tea, biscuits, or go out for dinners or stuff, like, do you expect to become a multi-millionaire networker that's going to have favors to hold up on every past and current president or whatever. Like, no, you just go to hang out with your friends because you like hanging out with your friends. And he's clearly someone who was not that person, but you know what I'm saying? It's like, I'm sure that for him, every interaction was like an opportunity. Yeah, it was a business transaction. But if you can think about, well, no, I just go to see my friends because I like my friends. Yeah, cool. I like making videos because I like making videos. And that it's not one-to-one, obviously. It's still work. It's still costly. It's still a business. It's still blah, 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 blah. But ultimately, at the very core of it, it is, do you enjoy the thing? Do you go out to eat at a restaurant because you want to be the next championship hot dog eater or something? Like, you know, like, not everything is transactional.
Yeah.
Not everything is.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people are forgetting that. But I do understand why people do, because of the way things are nowadays. Shit's fucked. Things are getting more expensive. Everything's falling apart. Nobody can seem to understand that it's like 10 of the richest, most powerful people in the world pulling all the strings, and everyone's just busy fighting each other in the mud without realizing what the actual problem is, and it's not getting better for anyone, and it's just shit fucking sucks. So I do get it. But if you want to talk about creativity and, you know, what, art for art's sake or whatever, yeah, because when you don't look at art for art's sake, you get NFTs. Yep. And that's all I'll say.
Yep.
You know,
that's the mic drop.
Now that's the mic drop.
So,
because if someone can convince me, however clever the tech is or whatever the point is, if someone can convince me that NFTs were initially done to not make money, then I'll eat my own hair. I don't.
Well, technically, they weren't made to not make money. They were made to hide money.
Ah, yes, I suppose that's right. Yeah,
money movement service.
Money movement.
But like, but then it's like, yeah. Or did Van Gogh paint his self-portrait because he was trying to, hide offshore tax funds, or like try and convince people that it was worth more than it was? Like, it's just ridiculous.
Well, that's what makes like art kind of creepy, because like most of the art is funded by underworld criminals going, hey, art's a non-taxable asset. Let me buy this.
Yeah, it's weird. It's all very weird.
Wait until,
and then there's the
oh sorry, I was
no. I don't know. That was I don't know what I was gonna say. I just lost it.
I was just gonna say on that note, thank you so much for your time, for everything you've shared, for all your perspective on content creation and your general openness. Like, as a fan of your content for a long time, it's been a real pleasure speaking with you. So we just want to thank you for everything.
Oh, that's really kind of you. Really. Yeah, thanks for having me on. It's been great fun. I mean, even the questions you were asking about last year with what we went through, I haven't spoken that openly before in this kind of situation ever. So you got the fucking scoop on that. So congrats.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
But no, this was great fun. Absolutely, really great fun. I love talking, as you can probably tell. So sorry, this is going to be really long.
No, we like talking too. We can ramble for
absolutely
hours.
Well, is there anything that you wanted to plug or mention before we wrap it up?
I mean, aside from just I will just use this opportunity to say, if anybody knows who I am already, I am aware. I know the videos. I know. I am working on it as much as I can. A lot of things have got in the way. Not even just the obvious, but other extenuating, infuriating things that I can't possibly go into right now. Tech problems, that's not new to me, but things are getting done. So just keep an eye out. When the fucking next video is done, I will be shouting it to the high heavens. I'll try and make it an event, but yeah, just stick with me. I promise I haven't gone anywhere. It's just been a bit slow. That's all. So if you can just keep holding on to me, then I would appreciate it. That's all I can really plug.
And Zuki, of course, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
And beyond that, Just excited to drop this episode, and of course, peace, peace, peace. Slugs never die.
Nope.
Don't they?
No, they don't. They don't. That's the
They don't
that's
die.
the catchphrase. No, oh man.
Yeah.
Do they die?
I've got some. I mean, I've got some salt. I mean, we can test that.
No,
Not the slugger side.
oh man, the slugger side.